So I'll go ahead and give you all my apology and explanation. My screens are over here, my camera computer over here, my notes are here, and my agenda is over here. So when I'm looking here, I'm actually paying attention to what's going on. So when I'm looking over here is when I'm looking into the camera, and then everything else going on. I'll do my best to stay in the frame. Sometimes I have to scoot that way, be able to see things well enough to follow along. Hold on here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't see Alderman Hayes. I do see a phone number there. Tina, the phone number 615-207. I assume that's not Alderman Hayes.
That would be correct, sir. That's actually one of our staff members.
Okay. Tina, at this point, since it's after 7, do we have any citizen comments?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, thank you for that. We are going to wait for Alderman Hayes for just another brief second. We saw him earlier on one of our Zoom calls for a committee meeting.
He's coming online now, sir.
There we go. I'll also go ahead and remind everybody that this is a meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. Those are the people who have the right to speak. If we want somebody else to speak, we need to suspend the rule. We need to ask them to speak. For some folks, that involves suspending the rules. Anybody who's not a department head, city attorney, or city administrator, we have to suspend the rules for them. And again, this is for conversation among the board members. If we have questions or we have a report from somebody else, that's when that comes up. And I'm the one that decides based on Robert's Rules of Order and state law who speaks, since I'm the chairman of this board. Tina, you say we have, there we go, I see him now. So Tina, tell me when you're ready for us to begin, please.
You are fully live.
Thank you. I want to welcome everybody to the meeting of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen for July 28, 2020. We are going to begin this meeting as we typically do, and that's with a prayer and pledge. So what we're going to do is I'm going to offer a prayer here, and then I'm going to stand up. You see the flag behind me. I'm going to do my best to move off to the side before I start the pledge. So please join me in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together, and thank you for the opportunities you presented us here tonight and the opportunities you present to us for a lifetime. Help us to do your work. Help us to use the gifts you've given us, the wisdom you've given us to do your work. Help us to go from here and continue to do your work. And help us to also remember to praise you and show gratitude toward you and toward many people. But we especially need you to lift up Janet Fentress and other folks out there that are hurting and people that are in danger. We also want to show our appreciation for the people who protect us here and for the people who protect us far away. Please continue to lift up and look out for the families of people with this dreaded disease and help them to move swiftly through it and survive it, and help the families, especially it takes an emotional toll on so many people. And we ask all these things in your name. Amen. Please join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I appreciate that. For the agenda, I'm going to ask that we group all ordinances and resolutions, that's A through E, and that we also group other agenda items A and B. And I'm going to entertain a motion for the person who makes a motion to approve the agenda to include that.
I'll make the motion. I'll also like to, as part of that motion, take other agenda items number C and put that immediately the first vote under ordinances or the resolutions.
So that would be the first vote under, or that would be before we take up ordinances, resolutions, or after?
That would be before. So we would do other agenda items C, and then we would do the two groupings as you proposed. That's my motion.
Okay, and I propose, I appreciate that. I propose those groupings to be separate, so it would be 2 groups. Is that my understanding of what you're agreeing to?
Yes, 2 groupings, yes.
Okay, okay. So we've got a motion
Second.
and a second from Alderman Brown. So what we'll have is after reports, when we get to, after reports, before ordinance and resolutions, we'll get to item C on other agenda items. That's to offer the position of city administrator to one of the candidates recently interviewed. Then we will go to the group of ordinance and resolutions, A, B, C, D, and E. Then we will go to other agenda items A and B. Is there any discussion on that? Hold on one second here. I apologize. I see nobody's hand, their little blue hand to the right or their hand in front of me in their grid. So we have a motion and a second to that. Please speak up if you would like to discuss this. All those in favor of this agenda, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bo,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
That passed unanimously. Next, we have a presentation, and I'm going to ask Alderman Robertson to lead us off with this. Alderman Robertson, our presentation tonight is for Mike Skinner, and he's been pretty important to the city, even though a lot of people know that. Can you go ahead and give us a little explanation?
Thanks for coming to visit.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. I'm pleased tonight to recommend to you that we recognize the service of Mike Skinner with the Golf Commission. Mike has been chairman of that board for several years, and he is resigning in order to move, I believe, from our fair city. But I thought it was entirely appropriate for BOMA to express our appreciation. I will say this, under his leadership, the golf course is doing well. It's in great financial shape. Its balance sheet is good, is strong. The play is good. The golf course is in excellent shape. And Mike, a lot of that credit belongs to you for leading the Golf Commission of Citizens that oversees the Golf Commission. So with that, Mike, I'd like to give you the opportunity just to say a word or two, but please accept this board's sincere appreciation for all of your hard work, your diligent efforts to make Country Hills the gem of the city. Thank you. Mike?
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Eddie, thank you very much for that, those kind words. To the board, it's been a pleasure to represent the board and the city and the taxpayers to be on the golf course commission. I remember playing with Jim Colbert when we first opened it back in the early 90s, and I thought that was just a great thing. The city had its own golf course, and I was proud to do that. I'm proud to have been on the commission as till this time. Regretfully, well, I'm moving, so I'm gonna have to resign. But it's not really about me. It's the golf course is in really good shape. I wish I could accept some of those kind words that Eddie did, but the people that work out there, they work really hard. There's professionally run, and it's a great asset to the city. And the benchmark to this city, to me, has always been the parks and recreation. So the golf course just fits right in there. It's something it provides it's a recreational facility for a lot of people, young, old, and otherwise, that they can go out there and use this facility that's owned by the city. So the people that work out there work hard, and it's something that we all can be proud of. And I just thank you. It was an honor to represent the board in the city, to do so over the years. And I'm sure with the people that are out there, that will continue. So again, thank you very much for your kind words.
Mike, I think Alderman Robertson said mostly what I want to say, but I do want to mention that you've served for 20 years. All of that as chairman or part of that as chairman?
No, I think I've served 5 mayors, to be honest with you. But no, I haven't been chairman. Lynn Starks was chairman there for many years, and the other chairs, I can't remember if there was one before that. But anyway, I've been doing this, been on the commission since back in the 90s when the golf course opened. So it's been a real good experience. Okay.
Well, anybody that thinks serving on the golf course commission is just a bunch of playing golf are very, very incorrect. Anybody that has been involved in municipal golf courses and privately owned golf courses understands what happened to golf about 7 or 8 years ago. A lot of golf courses closed and a lot of golf courses struggled. Mike, I appreciate very much what you've been able to do with the staff, the rest of the golf course commission there, and how well that you have kept that golf course functioning. And it truly is a gem for our city, and it has an impact on property tax as well. Thank you very much, Mike. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Mike, you're absolutely welcome to stay with us. You're absolutely welcome to leave. We appreciate you.
I will in spirit, believe me. And I will just say this. I would just say to all of you, the best of luck in the future. I know many of you personally. And I think that your passion, your hearts are in the right place. Sometimes we always don't agree with each other, but that's not a bad thing. But even at the golf course commission, as some of the liaisons will know, we always didn't see eye to eye, but it's to the benefit of the end result, which was the right thing to do. So the best of luck to all of you, and your continued success for a great city.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike Skinner.
We're gonna miss you.
Service, Mike.
We're gonna miss you.
Thank you.
Next,
Bye.
we have public hearing, but we have no public hearings. And then we have minutes. I'm going to entertain a motion to accept our July 14th, 2020 meeting minutes.
So move.
A motion from Alderman Waters
Second.
and a second from Alderman Cunningham. See nobody indicating that they'd like to discuss that. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented in your packet for July 14th, 2020, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Thank you.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Tina, thank you.
Edwards,
Aye. Did you call my?
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. It passes unanimously. Next, we have citizen comments on the agenda, but we have nobody signed up for citizen comments. And that takes us to committee reports. Chairman Cunningham, Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we were on time tonight with our Finance Committee meeting, so that bravo to our committee and the participants. We, under ordinance and resolutions, we had ordinance 2020-22 and ordinance appropriating funds received for painting of a fire department vehicle. That was recommended unanimously. Ordinance 2020-23, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a COPS hiring program grant. That was also recommended unanimously. Under resolutions, we had resolution 2020-42, a resolution accepting a donation from the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by the Hendersonville Police Department. That was recommended unanimously. Resolution 2020-44, a resolution authorizing the issuance and payment of a interfund loan not to exceed $175,000, transferring from our general fund to the Country Hill Golf Course Fund, and that was for that'll be for the golf court carts. That was recommended not unanimously by 2-1. Resolution 2020-44, a resolution to apply for a Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee Foundation Healthy Places Program grant. That was recommended unanimously. Resolution 2020-45, a resolution authorizing the transfer of $30,000 from the Public Works Department assets, $7,000 and up, line item to the Public Works Department Golf Course HVAC line item. That was recommended by a vote of 2-1. Then we had other business. We had our sales tax report. Happy to report that our June collections, which reflect our May activity, month over month increased from last year by $46,164. That's huge. That was wonderful. Our projected sales tax year over year will be projected to be $671,176 year over year for year to date, or an increase of 5.08%. Our hotel motel tax month over month last year was $32,920 versus this year $15,976, which is a decrease year month over month from last year of $16,944, but it dramatically increased from last month. So we're on the upward swing. We went over our stormwater utility fund. We're still doing lots of drainage projects, and our cash flow analysis. And we also went over our budget or overage report. Our finance director has received notification from our state comptroller's office that our new budget has been accepted and approved. The recommendation from our comptroller's office was to have a fund balance policy in place. So that's something that our finance folks are going to be working on. And that is the end of my report. Thank you, Mayor.
Chairman Cunningham, thank you. Chairman Sprouse, General Committee.
Thank you, Mayor. For the General Committee report, we all know that it takes the entire family to serve when we're in this. And y'all may have seen earlier that one of the members of our committee, Mr. Hayes, has engaged the services of a special consultant tonight. Mr. Hayes, would you like to introduce your consultant tonight?
That was my grandson, Connor, but he has left the building. He has left the building. So we're at the beach this week, and Connor and his twin brother, Mason, and their cousin, Emmy, are all enjoying dinner right now. So
well, I know you and Tammy are proud of him. This one, so I wanted to know which one that was. I know you had twins. So thank you very much for that. And that's the General Committee report.
Thank you, Chairman Sprouse. Chairman Brown, Public Safety Committee.
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Public Works, Chairman Skidmore.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We've had a full agenda once again, as we always do in Public Works. I want to thank the committee members for going through it. The basic things I want to talk about, two items tonight. One, we talked about recycling, and that was passed unanimously to come to the Board of Mayor and Alderman for discussion, which will be coming out in the coming weeks. So we'll have to make a decision on that one way or the other. And I want to thank the committee members for indulging me. We had a bunch. I've never seen as many people in Public Works as we had this evening, and I'm very grateful. Everything went real smooth. There wasn't any fussing and fighting. We all got along together. That's good. And then the other thing is we have another issue that we're going to hold a special called meeting for, and that is the issue of the Kozloff property that's in question, not with the city, but with the property owners, and we're going to try to get down to that. But we're going to have a special call meeting after Marshall and I get together to find out what a time certain for that. Really, there's not a fight between the city as opposed to the landowners or the property owners. And that's really all that really needs to be said. But we're going to have a special call meeting for that. Other than that, we had several other items that we passed on to finance that they'll have at their next meeting. And some of them, I think they even discussed tonight. And other than that, Mayor, that was it. Thank you all.
Chairman Skidmore, thank you. Alderman Sprouse, did you have a question for him?
Yeah, just to go back with the question of the property it's in dispute. I guess a year or so ago, we passed that we had no interest in the property whatsoever.
Yes, that is
So
correct.
what dog does the city have in this fight? I'm just wanting to make sure what our interests were and that we're not engaging in something that's not really our venue.
I agree with you, and I think probably the rest of the aldermen feel the same way about that. It's not really a fight that we don't have an interest in that. At least that's my opinion. We don't have an interest in that fight. What we're trying to do is just trying to resolve an issue that are trying to help resolve the issue. It may not even be necessary for us to resolve that issue, but we just think it's in the best interest of the city to get the two property owners together and discuss it, whether they can get along or whether they can find a medium that they both agree on, and then we'll be better off for it instead of not having it, possible litigation and that kind of thing. So really, at this point, there's not really much for us to discuss at this point.
All right,
But
thank
now
you.
there probably will be at our next meeting when we find, we get together and figure out which day or month and day it'll be. But I'll be coming back, Alderman Sprouse. I appreciate the question
Thank
and
you,
letting everybody know what's going on with it.
Chairman Skidmore, thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Campbell, Capital Projects.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No report this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Woodcock, Planning Commission.
Thank you. We've had no action since our last meeting. However, our next meeting will be next week, Tuesday, August 4th. We will have a public hearing about a 29-acre parcel that's going to be rezoned or annexed into the city. It is between Durham Farms and Fountain Brook in Ward 6 and Ward 5. Thank you.
Alderman Woodcock, thank you. Next, we have a city administrator report from Interim City Administrator Dave Lamar.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. First of all, is everybody's aware the trash has been a huge burden here lately, and a lot of discussion and a lot of things going on. I've asked Marshall and Mayor, I don't know that if I need to ask to suspend the rules or not, to ask Marshall to give an update during my report here on the trash. I'd like for him to do that, if that's okay.
We're okay. We're okay with that. He's a department head, and if you want to include him in part of your report, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Marshall, if you'd like to give us an update on the trash and where we're going.
Dave, thank you. And thank you to the board, mayor and aldermen. First, I want to thank all of you for your patience. The rolling schedule regarding collection put in place last week was difficult for everyone. The rolling schedule finished Saturday with misses continuing to be collected through Sunday. This week will show elevated misses from calls and emails from the weekend. We had 76 calls logged Monday, with 52 being logged today. The misses will have a more true representation next week once we have a clean week of service this week and no routes roll to the next day. All routes for today and yesterday have been completed. They finished up with all the trash being collected. And I wanted to point out too, Waste Pro has reached out to 2 reputable companies that provide residential collection in the Nashville area, McMurtry Disposal and Hudgens Disposal. Messages were left with both companies from Waste Pro. They have also reached out to a third-party vendor that knows management at both companies. He informed them that I would be contacting them. That's the Waste Pro. So they were prepared for my call. No one has returned a call from the messages that were left. And Waste Pro continues to call each company daily, and the phones are constantly busy. And so they continue to reach out for the subcontractor to try to make contact and get that in place. But just to let you know, the trash service this week has been much better over last week with the routes being collected on both today and yesterday. So that things are looking much better. And that's the end of my report.
Marshall, thank you very much. I wanted the aldermen and the people on here to hear kind of what's going on. Marshall talks daily, if not several times a day, with Waste Pro. He and I have been meeting with them late in the afternoon to kind of see where they are every day. The one thing I'm going to request that aldermen do, everybody does, department heads and anybody has complaints, please refer them directly to Public Works so they can log into the system. The other thing, if you'll, or refuse, REFUSE at Hendersonville, HVLTN.org, that'll go directly into the system. If someone, John Doe, sends me an email and I forward the email to Public Works has got to enter that email in there, and it just gets convoluted. So I would appreciate the aldermen and any staff members and anybody in town going directly to the refuse at HVLTN or call the Public Works directly, and so that his Marshall staff can enter that appropriately so that we can get it taken care of. The reason why I say that is that we're getting 4 and 5 emails on the same complaint, and we're wasting a little time going out to houses that have already been serviced for a pickup that have already been turned in. So all we're trying to do is just keep down the confusion so that all the people can get their trash picked up. But it has been a lot better. I appreciate you, everybody bearing with us as a staff. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but as you've seen, Metro and some other people have got issues too because of the COVID and staffing issues. So moving on. When 2 weeks ago on the 14th, one of the ordinances on the books that y'all passed was for the city administrator, certain duties and responsibilities of the city administrator, and that ordinance was passed 2 weeks ago. In doing that, it gives me the responsibility as city administrator, or the next city administrator, whoever that happens to be, the decision to hire and fire and discipline and take care of employees and whatever we need to do with employees. So what I'm going to ask you tonight, Alderman, is I'm bringing 2 people to you that are interim positions and asking you to confirm my appointments that I've decided to make after 7 months. First one is Chris Taylor. Chris has been HR for the last 6 or 7 months. He's been in HR for 5 years. He's a very energetic young person, loves what he does. He's got a great staff. And I'm going to recommend Chris to come off the interim status and move to permanent director of HR for the city of Hendersonville. So I don't know, Mayor, what is appropriate for the board to confirm that, whether somebody needs to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to confirm the appointment.
I'll
We have a
second.
motion
Second.
and a second. Do we have any supporting documentation for this?
Meaning what, Mayor?
When I believe when Mayor Foster brought forward candidates for positions for department heads, always had some information about the process, who else was considered, and their opinions and their scores. Is there anything like that for these 2?
No, sir. I've worked with them for a day in and day out for 7 months. They've been with the city for this particular person. Chris has been with the city for 5 years at HR. The staff is working diligently. The interim position puts him in charge as he's been in charge. I feel as city administrator, my duties and responsibilities are to watch him daily and confer with him, discuss items with him, and things like that. And according to the charter, the city administrator has the ability to promote from within, and that's what I'm requesting to do.
Again, I've brought up Marshall and in the past, and as well as other folks for Public Works Director, and always brought some documentation with that, and always did that with any recommendation that I had for department head. You put us in a tough situation here, Dave, is that based on what we know about these folks, they're doing a great job, but we haven't seen any data. We haven't seen any information. We haven't seen what other interviews and what other people you've considered for this. It's really a difficult situation to put us in right here. And like I said, Mayor Foster, I believe, always brought documentation to show why he made that decision and why he encouraged other people to make that decision. Alderman Waters.
Somebody want something muted?
Alderman Waters, we can't hear you quite yet.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Go ahead.
Yeah, the question was for Dave. Who's the second one that you said you're going to bring? You're going to bring two?
Yes, sir.
Who's the second one?
Greg Story in the Codes Department.
Okay, that's very interesting. Mr. Chairman, this is really really floors me when the interim city administrator can bring two for us to vote on tonight. And here we've got a public works director, Marshall, that's been laying in limbo for what, 7 months, 8 months, maybe a year. And nobody has seemed to consider his talent, his professionalism, and what he's done in public works. So I think it's really sad when a interim city administrator can bring two people and not even think about Marshall Boyd, who's worked in public works. And I don't know why he hasn't been brought before the board to be confirmed. So I would certainly hope that that would be prior to the two that you're bringing tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Waters, thank you. Alderman Sprouse.
Thank you. Just because Mr. Lamar has not mentioned any other employees does not mean that he has not thought about any other employees or have plans or courses of action for any other employees. So I think it would be wrong to make that assumption. Also wrong is to say always when people have been brought forward that we have been provided information about who else was considered and what the process was. Especially I remember in trying to push back onto Mayor Foster. I can tell you quite frankly, it has not been always. Usually it's unlikely that we're given, particularly in writing, in ahead of time, what the process is. I could talk about finance director. I could talk about lots of things, but Mayor, I could even talk about our current parks director. We were just asked to vote to elevate Mr. Gilly to parks director. He wasn't even in an interim position at the time, and we were given no insight. So let's just be careful here. I think the question is not about the process. The process is being followed and it's consistent. The question is not about another employee. The question is on the floor is whether or not we should elevate our interim personnel director to become our full-time permanent personnel director. And I see a lot of people in the queue, and if they want to talk about that and that specifically, that's great. But if not, I encourage someone to call the question.
Mr. Chairman, if I may follow up.
Hold on 1 second. I want to clarify something that Alderman Sprouse just said about me. When Andy Gilly came forward, we had scores for several folks that also interviewed for the position, and I provided those to you. I also put that under other agenda items on the agenda ahead of time. Everybody knew it was coming. Everybody saw the material. Everybody was able to consider that material. You had it all ahead of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Alderman Waters, go ahead. If you want to
Thank
finish
you.
your thought. We sort of interrupted you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I didn't. I expected a sermon from a previous speaker here because that's natural for him, but that does not relieve me of any idea of why the Public Works Director has not been brought before this board within a year. I don't care who you want to bring. That's immaterial. But why are you jumping ahead of him and bringing these two? It just blows my mind, Dave. And I expected the previous speaker to sprout off because that's what he does. But he made my point. The guy has earned to be brought before the board and for us to either vote him in or vote him out and let the man go on with his life. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. Alderman Bolt.
We do them all separately, Mayor. If I can speak to each one separately, Mr. Waters, I will explain them momentarily.
Alderman Bolt.
I would imagine that if Alderman Waters had talked to the city administrator, he'd probably have a pretty good feel for what that situation is. if the feeling is by the mayor or others that they want to defer this, they certainly can. I think you've got probably at least 11 aldermen at this point that have a pretty good feel for Chris Taylor, have worked with him pretty closely, and are very comfortable with Chris and know his professionalism. There's also a matter of trust. The matter of trust comes down to the interim city administrator. The vast majority of us trust his judgment. The man's been there for 30 years. He's worked with him pretty closely, as well as all of us have worked with both Dave, and we've also worked with Chris Taylor. So, you know, I'd say we just move on and vote and just call it a day. But thank you.
Alderman Bolt, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
So is the motion just to approve Chris Taylor? It doesn't include Greg Story right now?
Do one at a time, sir, if you don't. It's
Hold on one second. Kay, what was the motion?
The motion was to confirm Chris Taylor as HR director.
Okay, and who made that motion in the second was from?
Sprouse and Edwards.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I guess I should have known. I seconded it, but I'm going to call the question. This is spiraling out of control, and this is going to go along. This is going to be a total waste of time. I don't think anybody can say anything negative about Chris Taylor, and I challenge somebody to do that.
And I second that motion.
Very
We have a
well.
motion and a second. We have a couple other people wishing to speak.
Well, I'm not going to withdraw my motion. This is just going to go out of control. I don't know why we can't just go ahead and vote.
And I'm not going to withdraw my second.
We have a motion and a second to call the question. That's non-debatable. So we need 9 people to vote in order to cease discussion about this. Those in favor of ending the discussion and voting on this motion, please signify by saying aye. Those in favor of continuing the discussion, please signify by saying no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
No.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Yes.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary,
Abstain. I'm sorry, Kay, I'm sorry. I vote no. I vote no on that.
11-2.
Okay, so that passes 11-2 with enough folks to cease the discussion on that. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
No.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary,
I'm going to abstain.
11 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 abstention.
That passes. Do we have another motion?
Yes, sir. Making a motion to.
Hold on, Dave, you can't make motions.
Well, I'm
Mayor,
asking,
I'd like to make a motion that we, upon the recommendation of the city administrator, that we make the appointment of Greg Story to coach director to be
Second.
permanent.
We have a motion, a second. Dave, Greg's a great guy. He's done a great job. Is he qualified for this job?
yes, sir.
He meets all the qualifications for the department director.
Yes, sir. And in one of the questions about the education, in that no bachelor's degree, knowledge, or level of competency typically associated with a bachelor's degree is related field of progressively responsible experience of 7 years of service in compatible position of government, building, and codes administration. Greg has been in the codes department here in Hendersonville 6 years. He's been in the codes around the country 21 years experience. He's got 12 certifications. Since the day that I put Greg Story in the interim position, I have had 1 complaint from a contractor on what goes on in codes. It has run like clockwork. His staff thinks he's doing a good job. I've had letters of recommendation from contractors, developers, plumbers, electricians. He's a good fit back there. He's proved in 6 months that he can do the job. And I'm requesting that you confirm him as codes director. Thank you.
With Public Works Director, with Finance Director, with Parks Director, I did an assessment center and asked MTAS to look at several candidates. Did you do that?
No, sir. I thought that the person that was in-house, the person that was the assistant director underneath Mr. Washko and was promoted to interim, was completely qualified, is qualified, and I back Greg 100%.
Does Gary Jekyll have a better idea of the qualifications and the possibilities out there than you do?
Well, that's ironic, Mayor, that you would speak about Gary Jekyll. Mr. Jekyll and I had a conversation no less than 4 or 5 times about this situation exactly and the interim positions. And he said that the city administrator was within bounds completely on the decision-making and reviewing the qualifications, the work ethic, the day-to-day operations of their department, and MTAS is completely on board with this decision.
So was MTAS asked to do an assessment center like I did with those other positions?
No, sir.
Why not?
I didn't feel it was necessary. He has on-the-job training, sir. He's already on board.
The items that you just read about his background and education, why weren't those provided to us last Friday with the rest of our packet?
Mayor, I just felt it was part of my report. I was meeting with the candidates and talking to them about their what they wanted to do in the interim, if they wanted the job, didn't want the job, if they were still interested in working for the city. There were just a lot of reports going on.
If I had done this several months ago, a couple of years ago, with the folks that I want to put in position, I would be ripped apart by some of the people on this meeting right now, ripped apart, if I had done the same thing and had the same behavior. Alderman Petrelli.
I've got everything professionally and above board.
Alderman Petrelli, go ahead.
By my guns.
Thank you, Mayor. We kind of had this situation last year with the finance director, and you brought forward Robert, and he didn't have full scale. And quite frankly, Robert has done an amazing job. He's been fantastic. So, you know, these two gentlemen have been in the city a long time. They've done a great job, especially during these difficult times. So thank you. I called a question.
I'm going to respond to that. That Robert was the second choice, is that we had an assessment center for the first. We have a call for the question for Alderman Petrelli and a second for Alderman Cunningham. All those in favor of ceasing the discussion on this, please signify by saying aye. All those in favor of continued discussion, please say no when Kay calls your name.
I would ask that I be allowed to make one comment why I would be.
Too late, Russ.
Okay.
I'll withdraw for Alderman Edwards.
Alderman Cunningham, would you withdraw your second?
Yes, for Alderman Edwards only.
You can't do that. We have several other people in the queue. You can renew your motion when we come back to you. Alderman Edwards.
Okay, thank you, Alderman Petrelli and Cunningham. I just had one comment. I'm going to have to abstain voting for Mr. Story, and I just wanted to say this for the record, and it's for ethical reasons in my capacity as attorney. It's nothing negative. Mr. Story can share with you why, but if he wants, I've known Mr. Story since elementary school. I think he's doing a great job, and I would highly recommend him as codes director. I hope we get a 11-1 vote with my only abstention, and I wish I could vote for, 12-1 vote. I wish I could vote for him. But with that being said, I would call the question.
A motion to call the question from Alderman Edwards. We still have other people in the queue.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of ceasing the discussion, please signify by saying aye. Those willing to continue discussion, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
No.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Yes,
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary,
Abstain.
11, 1, and 1.
Thank you. That passes. Dave, back to your report.
Thank you, sir. In the discussion Mr. Waters had a minute ago, Mr. Waters, that is a great discussion, and I appreciate your concern. Marshall and I have had discussions in the last couple of weeks in the trash situation, the limb situation, the grass clipping situation, the trash contract, the stormwater. Marshall and I agreed that he would like to wait another couple of weeks until the trash stuff died down and everything was going better in his job. And so I concurred with Marshall on that. I think he's doing a great job. I have no doubts in my mind, Mr. Waters, what I'll do in a few weeks. But he requested, and I approved his request to wait on his approval and confirmation. So that's the reason why. I have no qualms about what he's doing. Trust me, he's doing a great job. So that being said, the last thing on my report is
Mayor, did we just voted on calling the question? We didn't actually vote for Mr. Story, right?
Hold on one second. Kay, is that accurate? No,
Correct.
we voted.
No,
Okay.
we've not voted on the appointment.
Okay.
We have not voted on the appointment. So we voted on calling the question. If I may, Kay, I was confused. Reflect my vote is no on calling the question.
Okay.
And I believe that calling the question passes 11. Russ, do you want to vote on calling the question?
I voted yes on calling the question, but we
Gotcha.
haven't voted on.
Okay. So, Kay, I believe the vote tally was 11 in favor of calling the question and two opposed.
Correct.
Okay. So now we're back on the main motion. I apologize for that, Alderman Edwards. Now we're back on the motion to appoint Greg Story with no more discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Abstain.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Abstain.
That's 11 yeas and 2 abstentions.
Okay. Dave, back to your report.
You're on mute, Dave.
Sorry about that. I was trying to keep down the noise. I will bring Mr. Boyd to you in a couple of weeks for his request. And he's doing a great job. He just got a lot on his plate right now and requested, and I honored his request. But I appreciate the board's confirmation of the ability to let these guys do their jobs. They're doing a great job, and I appreciate you have the confidence in me and them to move forward. With that being said, if we do get particular 7 votes for a particular candidate tonight, I think we talked about a negotiation team. My recommendation, and again, I can't vote on the board. I'm just going to throw this out for his recommendation that Chris from HR, John Bradley, our city attorney, and our legal opinion, and Gary Jekyll from MTAS will be the negotiators if we do get 7 votes for one of the candidates. And again, that's just my opinion after talking to a couple of other city administrators this week about the process and things like that. So, Mayor, that's the end of my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. In a couple of weeks, maybe in a couple of days, we're going to get a bill from Waste Pro for July. Are you planning to pay the full 100% of that bill for July?
Yes, sir. Unless I hear differently from the Public Works Department on the exact number of houses that were missed and the number of duplicates that were entered into the system, because there are so many people entering the names into the system. I don't think, in the legal opinion, I think I get Mr. Bradley's opinion on this also. I don't think under the contract that the number of misses at this point warrants a fine.
How many misses warrant a fine?
Sir, you have to ask the legal. I don't know. I wasn't involved in the contract, so.
Have you read the contract?
Yes, sir.
So 50 misses, I believe, in 1 week warrant a fine. Have they had more than 50 misses in 1 week?
Sure, I'm sure they have.
Okay, I want to back up a little bit here and remind some people of some things, and all this is documented. What I'm about to say is that in February 2019 through June of 2019, Republic Services at that time was our trash provider, and they missed hundreds of houses. Spring of 2019, the Public Works Committee voted to end the contract with Republic Services and to seek new bids. The staff went out for bids. Again, all this is documented. This isn't my memory. This isn't conjecture. In April, the board had a workshop to discuss all the different methods and the likely costs for trash pickup. That was something the board did all together. After that, the staff added an addendum for refuse, including yard waste. That was a clarification that saved the city money, and it made it easier for whoever the winning bidder was to pick up the trash. Then the board chose Waste Pro. In June and July of 2019, I withheld payment from Republic Services based on the houses that had been missed that I mentioned earlier. And yes, the board later released some of that money. Nevertheless, we withheld money from Republic Services and we brought in another company to pick up the missed houses. In July, on July 19th, 16th, 2019, the Public Works Committee met with Waste Pro and discussed some commonly asked questions. One of those questions was, the company asked if they could require that the 96-gallon containers be required to be pulled to the curb. I said no. Fast forward about 6 months, January 23rd, 2020, I saw a draft that said exactly that, as a draft of a flyer that Waste Pro wanted to put out. It would require that people with 96-gallon containers, that they pull those containers to the curb. There is another item on that flyer, and that was that cans have to be visible from the road or one side of the house. I disagreed with both of those. I repeated that concern to Waste Pro, and actually posted it on the City Hall Facebook page. Interesting enough, soon after I disagreed with those two items about the 96-gallon containers and about containers being visible from the road, soon after that, I was removed from access to the Facebook page. So was Rod Kirk, the mayoral assistant. In February, soon after that, February 12, 2020, I forwarded complaints about a 96-gallon requirement while Waste Pro was refusing to pick up the trash at some houses. One of those complaints came from a gentleman named Chris Denon.
Mayor,
he had a 96-gallon container. I'm going to get to a motion. He had a 96-gallon container. He was told by Waste Pro that he had to drag that to the curb. Again, the contract said that he didn't have to do that. So I forwarded that concern about the contract to our city administrator. The city administrator disagreed. He blamed the homeowner, not Waste Pro.
Mayor, I've called a point of order.
I
Please,
feel
I'd
that
like to
some of
have
the
you recognized by the
guidelines
chair.
are not being followed by the homeowner. This is part of the city administrator's report, and I'm going to move on just a second here. Then in March, I asked Waste Pro for a list of skipped houses. They refused to provide that. That is when I started asking, and this refers to something that our city administrator just said. That's when I started asking to get a list of all the houses that have been missed. They refused. That's when I started asking for the residents to contact me to allow me to fully understand how bad the problem was. Up to that point, I wasn't being notified and wasn't getting a list. At that point, I realized that hundreds of people have been missed because they're emailing me to report the problems with Waste Pro. I continue to send emails to Waste Pro asking why the houses were being skipped. Rarely do they respond. They told me to have residents call the trash number. Here are the problems with that, and that's something that was just mentioned by the city administrator. When we expect people to call the trash number 1, we're expecting them to do some of the work. Very often, they don't get responses, and the residents rarely receive an explanation of what the problem was. So what that means is the next week, if the problem still exists, they're not going to get picked up. And also, there's nobody there to communicate to Waste Pro on the weekends and after work that there is a complaint. That's why I thought it was important that they bring those complaints to me. Here's the problem. The problem is that Waste Pro is not picking up the trash. The city should not pay for the houses they skip. That's in the contract. Waste Pro needs help. Residents should not pay for the help and pay Waste Pro at the same time. Waste Pro should pay for that help. So as CEO, I'm telling our city administrator not to pay Waste Pro's next bill.
Now, can I have a point of order?
Go ahead.
First off, point of order, when someone is saying that they feel like that Robert's Rules of Order are being violated, the violation does not, or the purported violation does not continue. That person should be recognized. I think it's very unfortunate that we have two sets of rules. the rules for the chairman and the rules for the rest of this body. For 3.5 years, this board has gone without the traditional mayor's report, where we're given regular information from the CEO of the city about the ongoings of the city. We also don't get access to Facebook posts. We don't get access to his emails that he sends out. But I think it makes it especially unfortunate.
Alderman Strauss, this needs to
Mayor,
deal-
I'm sorry, but I'm speaking now.
This needs to deal with the
It
city
makes it
administrator.
very unfortunate that the city administrator's report is hijacked as an opportunity to call into question things that he is doing very well. I'm not going to go into the long list and your long version of history, but I will say a couple of things that are very important. It's not as simple as saying we are not going to pay the bill. The contract requires misses to be documented, for them to be notified, the carrier to be notified of the miss, and also to have documentation that it is not resolved within 24 hours. Now, that is something that is time consuming. That is something that can be done, and I believe is being done. That is the appropriate way to do things. Last year, when you were upset with the last provider because you signed the letter canceling the contract, and because you were the one who proposed bringing in Waste Pro not once but twice, then
that's not true.
Your response to Republic was, I'm not going to pay the bill. It wasn't, let me document the misses, let me follow up with the contract. It was, I'm not going to pay the entire bill.
We already had documentation from them.
That put the city in danger of being sued for non-payment. And more importantly, as Republic manages the waste facility to which Hendersonville's trash is taken, any day that we were in arrears of hundreds of thousands of dollars in payment to them, they could have refused to accept our trash. And that would have been a huge problem. Again, we can go into the long history and alternate facts or whatever we want to call them, but I really wish that we could let the city administrator's report be his report, and now not suddenly having interest in what's going on in the issue so someone can cover their butt. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and repeat what I just said. As CEO, I'm telling our city administrator to not pay Waste Pro's next bill. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know that you can actually legally do that. I think I would check with Mr. Bradley first, but that's what you want to do. I just wanted to talk. I wanted to talk trash a little bit too, and I kind of miss Miss Burns jumping on here. We used to see her every meeting, say wanted to talk trash, and so I'm going to talk trash on her behalf. We had a bad week last week. There's no doubt about that. Ward 4 and in Lake Peninsula, Ward 2, everybody across the board had a bad week. And I think not only a bad week, I think there's been some issues with some pickups before. There's been a learning curve there. I think Waste Pro has gotten better with that. I know I've talked to Lori Kate a lot, Richard a lot, had one complaint yesterday. I don't know if Mr. Bolt had any. We didn't talk about trash yesterday. Had one complaint, and I won't go there because that would just open up something for an argument. But that complaint was taken care of early this morning. As a matter of fact, they said I looked out the window and they were getting my trash at 7 a.m. So I would compliment them on that. I would just like the Public Works Committee and Dave and Marshall and Waste Pro to have a discussion about so much home stuff. I don't even know what to call it, but I know Mr. Bolt had a house on his street this week. It looked like it had 2 rooms of stuff moved out sitting by the driveway. Had a couple in the backside of Ward 4 here that you could have put the furniture and the mattresses and stuff in a small U-Haul and hauled them away. I don't know that I know that's part of our contract, but I don't know that that's really fair to Waste Pro trying to do that without, maybe that's the only place we can go with that. But I think some of you have seen the same thing in your wards. It's almost over the top. I don't know if we can find a different way to do that, which would ultimately save them time and save some unsightliness sitting out there for 3 or 4 days before the trucks come through. So I don't expect anything solved on that overnight, and would like some other people to weigh in at some time. But I just wanted to mention that. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Brown, thank you. Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. After our Public Works meeting I guess it was last week, I came away with not a good feeling. However, after this last week of working with Waste Pro, they really stepped up their game, in my opinion, especially for our Ward 3. Responsiveness, pretty dedicated to solve the problem. Instead of threatening our vendors, I think we need to work with them to find solutions. And so far, out of the CEO, I haven't heard any solution except to penalize them. You try to withhold payment from them? What kind of mess are we going to be in now? Not us, but the people that we serve. That is not a good tactic. It may fulfill your political desires, but not a good tactic for the citizens of this city. We want to find solutions. We want to solve the problem. And we want to work together to do that. It should be a win-win, not a win-lose or a lose-win. We have a problem, guys. And I think we're working towards a solution right now. But to start threatening vendors, like you've done in the past, is not a good strategy. And I would be totally non-supportive of that. Thank you.
Alderman Cunningham, thank you. Dave, are you going to pay Waste Pro? I've directed you as CEO to not pay Waste Pro's next bill. Are you going to pay their bill at 100%?
I'm planning on paying the bill the way it needs to be addressed during the contract, and I'll get with legal on that.
So you're going to pay the bill 100%?
I didn't say that. I said I'll get with legal and we'll look at the bill and the contract.
Okay. Well, let me do this. Why don't I go ahead and make a motion to withhold payment until the whole board approves and approves that bill. I'll go ahead and make that motion. We should withhold that payment until the whole board gets to see that bill.
Second.
We have a second from Alderman Waters. So let me go ahead and tell you a little bit more about what's going on with Waste Pro. What we did in 2019 worked. It helped get the trash picked up. It wasn't a threat, it was action, it was a solution. I know that some folks want to say that we need to create a different contract that requires a 30-day notice, that requires us to take bids, which requires several weeks. We have to choose another company. We have to suffer through the time that it takes that company to get ramped up. That doesn't solve this problem. That means a couple months from now, we'll have a new contract. It doesn't solve this problem. So I really want people to understand that this company needs help. I don't think anybody doubts that this company needs help. If you want to talk about the contract, that's just not the problem. Yard waste is not the problem. Allowing them to skip yard waste should have made it easier for Waste Pro to pick up the trash. The problem is that Waste Pro is failing to pick up the trash, and Waste Pro needs help. I inherited a contract signed by a different mayor. It was with Republic Services. I never complained about that contract. My job was to see that the garbage was picked up and that the company was abiding by that contract. I never complained about that contract. It's also that contract allows that the city can hire help for Waste Pro. The current contract does, and we can require the trash company to pay for it. That's what I did in 2019. My motion is that the interim city administrator does the same thing I did. We ended up withholding money. No suit was ever filed. I want him to do the same thing that I did. Let's withhold the money, and that the city administrator should then work with Waste Pro to find them some help and to pick up the trash in the way that the contract expects. This company needs help. There's no doubt about that. It does not make sense to blame the person who signed the contract, the person who negotiated the contract, or the board that voted to approve the contract. It's the company's fault. The company won't pick up the trash. They need help. Let's get them help. This contract is virtually the same as the previous contract. The one minor difference is that it specifies what happens with yard waste. That was explained to make it easier for Waste Pro to pick up the garbage. If anybody wants to talk about yard waste, they need to acknowledge that that explanation makes it easier for Waste Pro to pick up the garbage. Waste Pro has blamed me, they blamed the contract, they blamed residents, they blamed COVID. They haven't taken responsibility themselves. Waste Pro is at fault here. They're failing to pick up the trash. I appreciate that we had a Public Works Committee meeting last week that Alderman Cunningham just mentioned. I appreciate that Mark Skidmore called that meeting. In that committee, the committee passed an expectation of 3 things on Waste Pro. They would communicate problems with staffing, they would explore other companies to help, and they would report houses that were missed by more than 24 hours. A day later, after that Public Works Committee, Public Works Committee, a day later, they had a meeting that excluded committee members. What they did at that time was then Waste Pro agreed to pick up all the trash within a half day of the regular day. So now, since then, just a week, Waste Pro has failed at all 4 items. They failed at picking up the trash within a half day of the scheduled day. They failed at giving the city a heads up about staffing. They failed to explore companies that would help them. They failed at reporting houses that were missed by more than 24 hours. None of that happened. We still don't know how many houses were skipped just last week. That's their responsibility. It's not our responsibility. So to say that we shouldn't penalize them because we don't have a list, it goes back to them. They're supposed to provide that list. Last week, it was in the thousands. Thousands of people missed trash service yesterday. This company also needs accountability. I agree that the past 2 days have been better than the last week. However, the company is still not living up to its contract. They need help. If we don't get help, what is to prevent this company from having last week a couple weeks from now? And just think about this. How many of our residents get paid 100% for doing 80% of their jobs? This company needs help. They need to quit leaving cans in the road instead of returning to the driveways. They need to quit leaving cans down the street. They need to find the cans at the back doors instead of expecting people to pull them to the curb. They need to pick up the 96-gallon cans at the back doors. Those are not required to be pulled to the curb. They need to quit skipping houses. One resident told me last week, it kind of seems like this company expects the paying customer to do a portion of their job for them. It's incredibly frustrating. I completely agree. It's like this company expects residents to do a portion of their job. And I also agree that it's very frustrating. Let me talk about a couple other addresses. 116 Crestview Drive. They have a can next to their detached garage. Waste Pro refused to pick it up because it's not visible from the street. 126 Pilot Knob. He was missed 2 weeks ago on a Wednesday. Just Waste Pro never came. He was missed last week. We reported the address. When the trucks came to his neighborhood, they skipped his house again. We reported it Friday. The trash was still there yesterday. 100 Surrey Hill Point.
Point of order.
Waste Pro picked up his trash. I'm going to continue. Wait, because there's no point of order here. This is within the order of our meeting. There's no doubt about that. Waste Pro missed his house. When they came to pick it up, they picked up the trash at the curb. We made them aware that he had trash at the back of his house. They still never picked it up. And then 431 Walton Ferry Road. Multiple trash trucks literally drive by this house. 431 Walton Ferry Road. They literally had to drive past the trash several times, but they just left. 126 Lakeview Drive. His trash should have been picked up Thursday. It's still there today.
I caution you to keep calling out people's addresses who have not willingly come
I'm
up
going to continue. 124 Deer Ridge Lane.
Stop
This person
calling
had a
out
dried paint
people's
bucket.
addresses who may not wish to have their address on live.
This person had a dried paint bucket. He was told by the trash crew that he had to put an absorbent material in the paint bucket. He did that. When the trash crew came back, they still refused to pick it up. 126 Anderson Lane, skipped twice. They have now gone 14 days without being picked up. This company needs help. We should hire help for them, but taxpayers shouldn't pay for that help. We should withhold money from Waste Pro, and we need to find a company to help them. That's my motion. We should withhold money, we should withhold their pay until it comes here, and we should find a company to help them. Alderman Robertson.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got just some brief comments that I would like to make. At the special Public Works meeting, the committee entertained and passed a motion that included 3 points. The 3 points was that we offered possible solutions to the problem of existing and future problems that Waste Pro may have. Alderman Campbell mentioned the possible solution of a pickup truck to go up some of the long driveways. I brought up the possibility of a subcontractor for the company to hire and gave them a specific 5 days to report back to Public Works. We've heard a report on that tonight. The second thing is we approved the appointment of an investigative team. I am a legislator. I don't have all the facts. I see the numbers as you hear, and as the other board does, I hear the complaints. But as a legislator, I don't have the information. I don't have the.
Alderman Robertson, we're losing you a little bit. You've frozen. Tina, can you help us and explain what might be going on?
Looks like an issue with low bandwidth, sir.
Okay, is that him or is that us?
No, that's on his side.
It is, okay. Should we suggest that he disconnect and reconnect, or what's the best suggestion here?
I was kind of hoping it would unfreeze itself, but it doesn't look like it's going to. It looks like he's going to have to disconnect and reconnect.
Alderman Robertson, we suggest that you disconnect and reconnect. We will go to Alderman Woodcock and we'll come back to Alderman Robertson in a few minutes. Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you. I think this is on your motion. I can't remember if we got a second or not, but
it did.
Maybe we can try to meet in the middle. Like I feel like you're going straight for the stick, which I don't necessarily disagree with, but it's going to be easy for the vendor to cry foul and get sympathy. So what I would suggest is maybe keep the carrot out a little bit longer. And for example, at the end of this week, if they're still having a significant number of misses, for example, if it's not less than 50% of what they missed last week, then we,
is a Democrat. She kind of seems like
hold on 1 second.
Take crap off.
We've got, okay. Alderman Woodcock, go ahead.
Wow, okay. At the end of the week, if they've not reduced their misses by 50%, we call the other vendors versus seeing if they've reached out to them. I mean, it's not in their best interest to find another company to do their job. So I would suggest that staff contacts those vendors. And again, just every week, if it's not getting better, we need to be stepping up what we're doing until we eventually get to that stick that we have in our contract to use. But again, that would be my recommendation versus going straight towards the fine this week. Give them a week to get better. If they don't, then we start using the stick as we can.
I'd accept that motion. Do you want to repeat that? I'd change my motion to what you just said.
My motion would be at the end of this week, if the misses are not reduced by 50%, that we start calling vendors versus asking Waste Pro to call vendors.
50% of what? 50% of?
The last week's record misses that was shared at that Public Works meeting. I can't remember the number now, but whatever the misses were last week or month, whatever was presented at the Public Works Committee meeting.
Okay, I'll change my motion to that effect. You don't need to amend it. I'm fine with that. Alderman Waters, do you agree to change your second to that? We didn't hear you.
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
Okay, appreciate that. Alderman Woodcock, anything else?
No, just to be clear, I mean, I hope we don't have to do it. That's just my way of trying to find a compromise between your stick and the carrot others are offering.
Okay, I appreciate that. Alderman Robertson, are you back with us?
I am.
Okay.
Well, I was just talking about the 3 points that we came up with the Public Works Committee. And one was the idea of an investigative team made up of our city attorney, interim director, and marshal to bring us recommendations. I don't want to start withholding payments or finding a company if there aren't sufficient grounds. Because if there aren't sufficient grounds, that is one way to be sure that we'll be in court. So just like a legislative body or an administrative body would have kind of a special prosecutor, I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping for, and that they review the numbers, they review the complaints, the compliance, and bring back to this board their recommendation, as any prosecutor would, for additional actions that need to be taken. And then last, we asked for additional surveillance. So I share your concern. I know, Mayor, that you hear more complaints being the mayor of the city than all of us do. I mean, I think that's evident, and we're all frustrated. But I hope that we're seeing a new day, that we're seeing a tipping point, a change. And so I think that we need to continue the investigative team to look at the issues. And if they feel that there is grounds, legitimate grounds, sustainable grounds for enforcement action, that the city attorney get with you and recommend a special meeting of the board to consider enforcement actions that are allowed in the contract. So I don't know about an artificial number of 50%. I know that Alderman Woodcock is looking for a compromise, but I just want to make sure that the number, it's not the number that I'm that interested in. I'm wanting the number to be a valid number, and that that our city attorney says that there are legal grounds for us to pursue enforcement action in the contract. So with that, that's my comments on the motion.
Alderman Robertson, thank you. Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank Alderman Robertson for everything that he just brought to the table. I think that makes a lot of sense. When we went through our meeting last week, some of us brought ideas to the table. They're, Band-Aids, like a rolling schedule, but it's better that folks are waiting 1 day versus 4 days for garbage. This whole garbage thing, there's so much information floating around. The mayor said some things, we've all put some bits and pieces together, but I'm going to get this out there. Last year, prior to the RFP going out, you just stated it, that Republic, and I even hate to mention their name, that they had some misses. Yet, under your tenure, your purview, your discretion, you never once brought to Public Works to find them, okay? So that's on you, Mayor Clary. Then.
Can I go ahead and respond to that now?
No, you may not. I have the floor. Thank you. Then we go to an RFP. We are told that we are getting apples to apples minus we're going to go to once a week. Why are we going to once a week? Okay. We're going to use that saved money to put towards paving. Sounded like a fabulous idea. We all want more paving in town. But what we, the aldermen, did, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chairman Skidmore, what we did not know until a special called meeting months after the contract was awarded, that through an addendum you took out of that RFP picking up yard waste, which for a lot of citizens was a bulk part of their garbage. So we had to scramble through Public Works to figure out how are we going to handle that. Okay. During the debate on what type of service we were going to have, not only had we not decided on the type of service nor vendor, you, unbeknownst to BOMA, canceled the contract with the prior vendor.
Not true at all.
That is true. That
you
is
have documentation for that.
I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to Dave. The mayor canceled the contract with the vendor, and it came out in a BOMA meeting. And I specifically said, this is management 101. You do not cancel a contract until you have another contract in hand. Then, prior to us having a full discussion and even voting on what type of service we want, much less the vendor, the mayor produced legislation specifically asking for once a week curbside and specifically Waste Pro. That was legislation generated by the mayor. The first
Again, not true. Absolutely not true.
Okay, Mayor. So then the first vote went to 4 a.m. and we stalled. No decision made. The next week, somehow, I'm not going to speak for anybody else, naively voted for this, thinking, okay, let's see if we can, let's follow the mayor's idea. Let's try to take the savings and put it towards paving. And it just didn't work out. So here we are a year later in the middle of a pandemic. It was a bad year to change services. Nobody could have foreseen that. Nobody. The service hasn't been perfect. I think the representatives of Waste Pro know where I stand. But we have had so much confusion. We have a chain of command for information for sending in garbage misses. It's to the Public Works number or to refuse email. All of us get contacted. All of us send it into Public Works. But when the mayor starts collecting information, email me, and then not only do you email the vendor, but copy constituents on it, hundreds of emails, that backlogs the system even further, adding to the chaos. I'm not pleased with what has happened in the last month with garbage. I got a couple of complaints today. I'm certainly not going to list those constituents' names, phone numbers, and addresses on a public forum. But I turn it into the vendor and go, you've got to improve. You've got to improve. There are garbage disruptions in Nashville. The vendors that we would hope to gather that would either subcontract for Waste Pro or subcontractor for us are all tied up. Take a look around. It's a horrific situation. If I could undo the vote, I would. I think we all would, but we can't. We've got to move forward. We have to follow legal advice of our Public Works Director, whatever he recommends, and our city attorney. There is an act of God clause in the contract. You signed the contract, Mayor. So if we start finding them without due cause, like Alderman Roberson suggested, I'm not saying that the service is perfect. I've been very upset about it, quite frankly, and I've acted to get it rectified. But if you're going to scare off another vendor, because what you failed to mention is that when you prematurely canceled that contract with the previous—
I didn't cancel it.
Okay, when the previous vendor's contract was prematurely canceled prior to having a new vendor on board, which is what most normal organizations would do.
Again, not true.
Prior to releasing a vendor, their employees spooked, and Republicans speak for themselves, and some of them left fearful of their jobs. So there was a disruption in service. All of this is not rocket science. There's patterned behaviors. So everybody can be a part of the solution. I think it's a very fair proposal, what Alderman Roberson brought up, and follow a systematic process so that we do not put the city at liability for another lawsuit or proposed lawsuit.
Alderman Petrelli, you said a couple things were absolutely not true. You said that the mayor canceled the contract with the vendor. That didn't happen. The Public Works Committee met, as I mentioned earlier, and I gave you the date of the Public Works Committee meeting when the Public Works Committee voted to not renew the contract. And the Public Works Committee, not me, the Public Works Committee, not me, voted to seek bids. I never brought forward legislation asking for once per week or for Waste Pro. I never did that. I brought forward the bids. The bids were requested from the Public Works Committee. They were put out there by our Public Works staff. Those bids included twice a week service, once a week service, different kinds of service from many vendors. It troubles me that you continue to say these things with documentation that proves otherwise. And you continue to say it in public forums.
Did you send a letter to Republic canceling the contract?
I'm going to continue. The Public Works Committee made that decision that we should not move forward with Republic Services.
Chairman Skidmore, is that true?
Alderman Petrelli, I'm going to go ahead. And a good portion of that reason that was discussed in that meeting was because of the houses that they had skipped. They started skipping houses, as I mentioned a little while ago. They started skipping houses in the late winter and early spring of 2019.
So why didn't you find them then?
They didn't start skipping. The skipped houses began before the Public Works Committee made that decision. It was discussed. Part of the reason also that I never brought forward to the Public Works Committee supposedly that they should be penalized was because Republic Services always provided us a list of the skipped houses. They always did that. At every Public Works Committee meeting, they brought forward a list of skipped houses. And we knew what those were. Waste Pro hasn't done that. That's in the contract. I didn't have to tell the Public Works Committee about the number of skipped houses because Republic Services was doing that. I talked with people, I talked to the Public Works Committee. I talked with the board about withholding payment, and I did it in public. It is absolutely inaccurate to say that I did that without any discussion with anybody else. I didn't have to have that discussion with other people. I had it with the Public Works Committee. I had it with the board. So here's 3 inaccuracies that you just gave us there. I hope that you will do better next time. Alderman Waters.
Oh, no, you're not going.
Thank you, Mayor.
I hope if you speak here that you have documentation of what you're about to say.
I think I've got the floor, hadn't I, Mayor?
Alderman Waters, we'll go with you. We'll come back to Alderman Petrelli.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if everybody's phone is burned up like mine, but I tell you, people are watching this tonight, and it is pathetic how some people want to attack the mayor, A while ago, about an hour ago, interim city administrator says, report your misses, your skips to the public works, to the city. Don't call Waste Pro. Well, I've sat here, I've listened to 3 people that's called Waste Pro and talked to them about this, talked to them about that, about them missing this, about them missing that. Now, we can't have it both ways, Dave, if you're still on the queue, but you said that a while ago, don't call Waste Pro, you call the city. Well, there's 3 right there that says they call Lori at the Waste Pro, they call Rich Joyner. I call them. I don't mind telling you, I call them, and I get service because I've got 3, and I'll give the address if I want to. That's me, but I'm not. But I've got 3 that was missed for 2 solid weeks. 2 solid weeks. You think I was going to call the city? No, I called the company, and they was out there in 2 hours on both of those. So I wished, and like I said, let's move on. And I like Alderman Woodcock's proposal. I think it's a good one. If we can't get it straight, then I agree with what he says. But let's quit bad mouthing the mayor every time somebody speaks. And you know, nobody's perfect. And let's move on. And we've got a lot to cover. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Waters, I don't want to forget what Alderman Robertson brought up was the motion that passed the Public Works Committee. So really, we have 2 things here. We have to vote on motion from Alderman Woodcock, but we also have Alderman Robertson reminding us what the motion was of the Public Works Committee. So Alderman Sprouse.
Your mic's not on.
I'm sorry. It's kind of coincidental. The reason why that first garbage vote went so late was because we also had a significant vote about city administrator on the same agenda. So it looks like those are going to be the same two big issues tonight. First off, I just want to say no committee has the authority to cancel a city contract. None. The board of mayor and aldermen, by a vote, a majority vote, could have the ability to instruct the mayor to cancel a contract. But the board was never asked. And I've gone back and I've listened to that Public Works Committee report, or that Public Works Committee recording of that meeting last year. And it wasn't a, hey, don't stop me from, I'm getting ready to sign the contract. It was a led discussion. Let me just put it that way. It was a led discussion, which, as Mrs. Petrelli said, ended up with the mayor without advising the board. I would have known, I would have said something about it. But the contract was canceled. When the contract was canceled, Republic employees knew that they were not going to have a job in Hendersonville the 1st of July. So they started looking. And when someone offered them a job,
say the contract was canceled. It was not
Mayor,
canceled.
I'm sorry, I'm speaking.
Go ahead. I just need to correct a fact there. It was not canceled. Go ahead.
They started finding other places to work. I think most people would do that. If they're given a job offer, they're going to take it. When it was brought to the board to make the decision about waste services, the resolution which we passed, or resolution that was before us, was sponsored by the mayor. And members of the board at this time were a little surprised. Instead of it being a discussion to select, it was actually a resolution to vote up or down to go to Waste Pro once a week from Republic twice a week. Kind of caught us off guard a little bit. We're a little surprised by that, but it was in the packet Tuesday, but that's fine. We had a discussion. And that night, I made the motion and Mr. Brown seconded to amend that resolution to keep the existing carrier, Republic, with the existing level service of twice a week. We thought it passed that night. Because of the late hour and some confusion, we found out it did not. We met again, we had to vote again. I thought it was a housekeeping issue. I thought we were just going to go ahead and vote to confirm a vote that we had made previously. But there were some things, there was some talking, there was some little arm twisting and arguing, I shouldn't say arguing, arm twisting and maybe a little lobbying going on behind the scenes. And then amazingly, that vote crumbled when we were told nothing's going to change other than the frequency, and clearly it did. Now, I know that it's easy in politics to create boogeymen, to always point fingers and blame someone else. There's always a boogeyman. A little over a year ago, the boogeyman was Republic, and we hired Waste Pro, and Waste Pro was the hero. We nearly got sued by Republic. We talked about that. But now Waste Pro's the boogeyman. Look, I didn't vote for this garbage contract. I'm sorry. I couldn't get more people to agree with me on that. But when we had that vote, I said, I'm going to join with y'all to make this work as much as possible, as best as possible. And that's really what I've seen the majority of this board doing the last couple of weeks, is really just getting together, discussing options. Go back and look. I'm not going to repeat what I said in the Public Works Committee meeting, but go back and look. I'm not happy. I'm ready to bid and I'm ready to put it out to bid for somebody else so we can be ready if this problem's not fixed. I talked about how excuses we were given for July were really things that they should have been able to resolve in March and May. But I think it's appropriate that we talk about how these decisions have been made, so we know how we're going to make the next round of decisions. Mr. Woodcock, I appreciate your motion. It's a little bit more generous. The ratio that you're offering is a little more generous than the one I would do. I'm going to support it because I think it falls into the line of what we should do. Just blanket saying we're not going to pay a bill which could be over $500,000 because of a portion of the service not being right, and I'm going to say an unacceptable level of that service not being right, is not the way to do it. That's not the way to solve the problem. The course of action that our city staff is taking right now shows the way to administrate policies set by this board. I thank you for the amended motion or the adjusted amendment, Mr. Woodcock, or motion or whatnot. And I encourage y'all to support it. Thank you.
Since Alderman Sprouse directed some of his comments to me about things I had said, I'm going to speak next. I agree with Alderman Sprouse that this company should have fixed a lot of these problems back in March. I agree that their level of service is below expectations, but I need to correct something. I never canceled a contract. Public Works Committee never canceled a contract. You said that multiple times.
Never did.
They did. Exact. Thank you, Alderman. Thank you, Chairman Skidmore. The Public Works Committee did not cancel a contract. The contract was up for renewal. The contract was expiring. We had to make a decision. We didn't make a decision to cancel the contract.
That's right.
We never did that. To say that is just plain wrong. To say it after this is intentionally wrong. I appreciate what the Public Works Committee, their discussion that night, and I think they were very helpful that night. Also, I mentioned earlier in the timeline that we had a workshop after we got all the bids. Alderman Sprouse, what you just said a few minutes ago neglected that. We had a workshop after all the bids came in. One of the things we did at that workshop is we took a poll of everybody there. We talked about the different types of service. We talked about the different service providers. We took a poll there. And based on that poll, I came forward with a resolution. If you were surprised at that resolution, then you weren't paying attention a couple weeks before. And that's hard to imagine considering that every person on here voted in that poll. It's hard to say you were surprised a couple weeks later with a resolution that was based on the way that you voted and expressed your opinion a couple weeks before that. Nobody was surprised. I appreciate what Alderman Woodcock has here. We should find a company to help this company. We should not pay Waste Pro and another company with taxpayer dollars. But I appreciate what Alderman Woodcock has there. I hope that future conversations tonight, and of course all the time, are based on fact. Alderman Edwards.
Well, once again, I'm going to call the question. I don't know who's behind me or what they have to say, but I know a lot of people have a lot to say, but this could go on for probably close to midnight. So I call the question.
I have one more.
I'll second it.
Who seconded that? Alderman Woodcock seconded that.
I did.
We have a motion to call the, Alderman Hayes. So we have a motion and a second to call the question on this, to call the question and vote on the main motion. All those in favor of ending discussion, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please signify by saying no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt.
Can't hear you.
Will you restate the motion, please?
Alderman Woodcock.
This is a call to question.
Oh, is that it?
Yes.
Sorry. Aye.
Brown.
A reluctant aye because my hand was up before Russ got in, but that's okay. I'll go along with it.
Campbell.
No.
Campbell, was that a no?
No. No, ma'am.
Cunningham.
Aye.
Edwards.
Aye.
Hayes.
Aye.
Petrelli.
No.
Robertson.
No.
Skidmore.
No.
Sprouse.
No.
Waters.
Yes.
Woodcock. Was that aye?
Aye from me, yes.
Clary.
No.
7, 2, 4. 7 ayes, 6 nays.
Okay. That requires 9 votes to pass. Alderman Edwards, did you want to continue?
No, sir. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Alderman Skidmore.
Thank you. I've quietly sat back and listened to this. It's unfortunate that we're arguing on this because, well, we really, and then I'm going to say a couple of things, but what we really need to do is really seriously we've got to, let me tell you, we've got to start working together on this garbage issue. Look, I could sit here, I have my own thoughts of who to blame and who not to blame, but I'm not one of those that play that game that Hendersonville is known so eloquently for over the years. I've never done it. I'm not gonna start now. So I'll leave it at that. So if people are looking for me to say, okay, whose fault it is, I can tell you the facts of what happened, and then you all make your own judgment. I'm not going to cast aspersions upon any of the colleagues that I serve with. I never have, I never will. Now, mayors of this town that I have served, which is every one of them, you doggone right I will, because I believe if one is wrong, seriously wrong, I'm going to call them out on that because they represent everybody. But when we have aldermen that work with some of the people in their district that represents everybody, I'm not going to do that. There's no way. Why would I do that? We need to work together and solve the solution to the garbage contract.
Amen.
So that's my position on that. After listening tonight of the arguments of everybody that has done an eloquent job on this issue, but I'm glad the mayor did say finally, because I've been having my hand raised, the public works, look, you can blame me for a lot of things in the city of Hendersonville, and I don't mind it, and I'll take it, and I'll own it if I did something wrong. But the committee that consists of Eddie Roberson, myself, and Pat Campbell did not do away with the contract with the Republic. Everybody knows that. You guys know that because we came back to the committee and told everything that was going on about it. The contract was over. We started submitting bids for the garbage waste. That's all we ever did.
Mm-hmm.
We did not do anything of the nature that's been said tonight. And I'm not saying, and I'm not casting dispersions about that, but I just want you all to know that. And I'm grateful the mayor went back and I guess he looked at the record. I don't know where he got it. I don't have it in front of me, but I can assure you as chairman of Public Works, we never did anything like that at all. And I know you guys know that. So when you hear that, dismiss it because it's a dismissive to say it. When I heard it, I dismissed it. I didn't, blow up about it. But I'm certainly not going to go and complain about my fellow colleagues that serve in that. And I have to defend them because, listen, Republic was a nightmare. Trust me when I tell you guys, remember that. That garbage, it was a nightmare. They were missing subdivisions over, all over the city. So what we did was, which is not illegal, we bid out, we submitted the bids that came out to see what the cost would be to get somebody else. That's what we did. That's all the committee did do at that time. And then once we got the bids and with Marshall, we came to you guys. We're not going to go out on our own and hire a new garbage people, or we're just not, we don't do that. You can't do that. And you all know that. So once I heard that, I had to raise my hand and say, look, in defense of my fellow colleagues, you're not going to throw that. Here's the deal. You're not going to throw those guys under the bus. You can throw me under the bus all you want to, if you want to make some things up. Cause what's that old saying? And the men in this board will know. What was that guy, that coach that said, I'm a man, I'm 40 years old. When that guy was doing the thing against his quarterback. Well, that's the same way that I see this. You can say what you want to about me, but you're certainly not going to throw them under the bus or the committee or Marshall or anybody, because we did what was right. We looked for somebody else, and the closing thing I want to say to you guys is we don't need to argue about this. I'll support Alderman Woodcock's motion if that's what he wants. That's fine. But what we've got to do, man, we've got to start working together on this thing, because if you look, all you've got to do is look at the news and look at the world, what is going on right now. This COVID thing. We've got COVID going on in this country. We've got riots going on in this country. But look at Hendersonville, and we're sitting here arguing about garbage.
Yeah, that's right. You're right, brother.
You know, so I'm not going to preach anymore. I'm just telling you my thoughts about this. Yeah. I'm willing to pick up the hammer and go after them if Waste Pro needs it. I will assure you of that. But let's just go ahead and pass this motion. Let's get it on and get going with it and try to everybody work together on this. And let's stop the discussion on this, because it doesn't need to be anymore. We got to move on. We've got a lot of important things to do this evening. And I thank you, Mayor, and I thank you, fellow board members. Thanks.
Alderman Skidmore, thank you. I've got several people who have their hands up over to the right, and for some reason I'm not able to put hands down after those people speak. So I'm just going to go and ask you if you'd like to speak. Alderman Edwards.
No, sir.
Okay, can you go ahead and put your hand down for me? Thank you. Alderman Brown.
Yes, I would like to speak. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
I'll try to be very brief. I can't say much more than's already been said, but I do have a couple things to add. Daryl, I appreciate you offering some kind of compromise in there. Eddie, I would like to thank you for reiterating what Public Works talked about last week. Mark, your input as well. I don't know that we've necessarily fulfilled everything that Public Works talked about in their meeting, but we definitely have had a better week. And I know I think there's been some looking for some help if they need help. I would also tell you that I don't really understand. I would find it hard to believe that any of the other major companies would want to come in and subcontract with a company that has a contract with a large city, but so it may be harder to find help than some people think. And here's the last thing I would say. Mr. Lamar, you were put on board as the interim city administrator by this board. According to our charter, the way it's written, and according to what we've done, you work under the direct supervision of the board and mayor and alderman. As one of the aldermen that you work under the supervision of, and I appreciate you doing what you've done this past week. I know it's been a stressful week. I would tell you when the invoice comes to your desk to sign off on, you and Marshall both, that from Waste Pro, unless you find a significant discrepancy in it somewhere, that you sign that invoice, you get it to Robert to write the check, and it gets to the mayor to be signed. I would tell you, Mayor, it's your decision then.
I don't sign.
I don't sign that check.
I don't sign them.
You don't sign the checks?
No, I don't sign the checks. Y'all took that away from me. You took that away from me.
Signing away from you.
Yeah, you did.
He sure did.
Well,
you voted on that. You agreed to that.
Now, I got to speak up here. I haven't said anything. I've listened to all this patiently. The charter says the mayor has to sign the checks. The city administrator does not sign checks. I think you can ask Mr. Lamar. He'll tell you he hasn't signed a single check. The mayor knows he's got check signing authority.
I have not signed checks for Waste Pro in several months. So what's happening?
You're the only one in the city that can sign checks, Mayor.
Who has signed checks for Waste Pro? Let's find that out right now.
You are the person who has to sign checks.
Asking that question. I'm asking who has been signing the checks for Waste Pro.
Not me, Mayor. I don't work in the finance department, Mayor. I have no idea who's been signing them.
Oh, okay, let's ask our city administrator. He should know this. Who's been signing checks for Waste Pro?
I haven't signed a check in 7 months, man. I don't know who signed it.
I didn't ask you that question. I asked you who signs check for Waste Pro.
I didn't sign any checks in 7 months, and that's the answer I'm going to stick with.
Then who has been paying Waste Pro?
Once again, we have a matter of semantics here. Mr. Lamar signs a check request. He signs off on a check request. The mayor actually signs the checks. That's the way our charter works.
I have not signed any checks for Waste Pro. Who has signed the checks for Waste Pro?
You need to talk to Mr. Manning about that then.
Well, we have our city administrator here. He should know that. He supervises Mr. Manning, and he's responsible for that. Who's been signing the checks for Waste Pro?
Mayor, it's you by the charter.
I have not signed checks for Waste Pro. Who has been signing the checks for Waste Pro?
on.
Robert, are you still on here?
I
Robert, are
agree
you
this
with
is
us?
important, but maybe we can settle this outside of the public meeting.
I want it very
Yeah, I
clear
agree,
that I have
Daryl.
not signed checks
This
for
is
Waste Pro.
becoming a
I
circus,
want
Daryl.
that very clear.
I
To
am
say that
on.
I have that authority. Go ahead, Robert.
Since I had the floor and I still have the floor, I would like for somebody to find that out tomorrow.
Robert's on.
If I
Robert's
haven't had a
with
check
us.
signed, that may answer the question why they're having some bad service in the last week or so.
Robert's
But
with us.
anyway,
Robert.
I would tell you to go ahead and process that invoice. And Mayor, you need to figure out if you're supposed to sign checks or not supposed to sign checks. The charter says you do.
Well,
Thank you.
Okay, I'll say this. If I'm supposed to sign a check for Waste Pro, I'm going to withhold it until I see a list. Robert, who's been signing the checks for Waste Pro?
Up to you then. It's on you if you hold it and you don't get trash service, not on us, buddy.
Let's answer this question here. Robert, who's been signing checks for Waste Pro?
We have an application that is used that has yours on it, that you have access to, that has both my signature and yours, that a check is printed from. If you would
Stop
like
that
to
now.
manually sign the checks, we're more than happy to provide them for that. But yeah, that's been the process since well before I was here.
Have I signed any check authorizations for Waste Pro in the past 6 months?
Not since that was changed to Mr. Lamar for check requests.
So when Mr. Lamar signs that check request, it goes out with my signature?
The process has still been the same since, like I said, well before I was here. That process for signing checks is.
Stop that now, please.
Yeah, if you would like to manually sign them all, we'd be certainly happy to provide them. We do about 120 a week.
Okay, we will hold off on that for now on that decision for Waste, for all of them right now. As of today, I do not give authorization for me to sign any checks.
Oh, all righty then.
And we'll figure it out another time. Alderman Brown, but let me be clear, Robert, that you have sent those checks based on the check authorization signed by Mr. Lamar.
Can you repeat that?
You have sent those checks based upon the authorization signed by Mr. Lamar. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, without any objections from anyone, yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Alderman Brown.
Well, since we're asking Robert's question, I'm going to ask him some more. Is that how all our bills are paid?
Yes, sir.
Check sign, that basic check signing right there, you said 120 weeks. So it would be Waste Pro, would be a gasoline vendor, would be a tire vendor, would be anyone, correct?
Yes, sir. I mean, there's varying levels depending upon the amount of the check or the request and whether it's on PO or contract. But yes, in general, yeah.
So you process the invoice with the check request, and then it's basically stamped by you and the mayor.
That's correct.
I take no action. I take no action on that. I don't stamp anything. I don't agree to anything.
I can see that. That's fine.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, you've got access to it if you know.
It goes out without me doing anything. I think you just explained that when Dave agrees for it to go out, it goes out.
I mean,
okay.
I don't think that had anything to do with Dave. It was a question to you and Robert Manning. So.
Man.
Alderman Brown, anything else?
Nope.
Thank you. Alderman Robertson.
I've been in the queue and I haven't spoken yet. I'd like to speak before all these people making second and third comments. Thank
Pat,
you.
I don't see you in the queue, but
I put my hand up. My little blue dot was there when a moment ago.
It's not there, but I bet you Alderman Robertson and Alderman Bolt, who have both already spoken.
Put it back up there again. There you go.
I bet you Alderman Robertson and Alderman Bolt, who have both already spoken. Alderman Robertson, do you want to speak again?
I will delay mine until Alderman Campbell speaks. I don't want to. This is my second time. So I'll defer and just drop one in line.
I hope nobody will make a motion to call the question. Alderman Bolt.
I'll defer to Alderman Campbell since he's not been able to speak.
Alderman Campbell, I see your hand up now. Go ahead. Will you turn your hand off?
Yes, I will. And one other thing, one of the businesses that I've been involved with, our family business for over 35 years, we sell check writing and signing equipment. We sell them to Fortune 500 companies, to just about every bank in downtown Nashville. Across the state of Tennessee, I do check writing and signing. If you have one check or you got 5,000 checks you want to generate. And yes, we have the ability as it's running that list to look at it and say, oh, it's over $200. I actually have insurance companies that will suppress the signature at $200. Anything over $200, they have to manually sign it because they have a bunch of low dollar amount checks they have to sign. So as it's coming off a laser printer, saying printing 100 checks a minute, it knows it can look right at it, sign it, skip it, sign it, skip it, sign it. And I'm just saying Hendersonville is not unusual in using check signers. I used to have the old check signer here at the city of Hendersonville when it was done on continuous form checks 25, 30 years ago. And we make signature plates, you load them in, there's lock and key, there's auto counters, there's ways to verify all these different things. And I can even show you how to do other things with checks. When you start thinking your signature is the safest way to sign a check or sign a letter, I can prove to you that it's not. And I'll be glad to show some of you how it's done. But anyways, that's beside the point, since we're getting into check writing and signing. And I would like to talk to Marshall Boyd if Marshall is available for a moment. Marshall, I hope you're still there, buddy. I see you're gone black and your mic is off. Okay, well.
He might be in the restroom.
He could be. This is true.
Make a sandwich.
Yeah, that's true. But anyways, I'd just like to say that, Marshall, we need to have a discussion from the day when Waste Pro walked through the door to review the Republic contract. Hey, Marshall, thank you for joining us. I'd like to have a conversation with you real quick, buddy. Go ahead and mute your mic there. We'll just talk back and forth.
All right.
I would like to go back to the first day when Lori Kate walked in the door for Waste Pro to review the garbage contract. When she walked in and you handed her that contract, y'all strike up a little conversation regarding, oh, it's time to rebid our contract. I think she knew that. That's why she was here. She was doing a good job as a sales rep for her company. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
All right. And then did y'all walk down the hallway and introduce her to the mayor so he would be in understanding that you were talking to someone regarding the garbage contract?
I assume that happened. It's been a little while, but yes, I believe that happened.
Okay. Well, I'm just wanting to make sure we're all on the same page so there's nothing out of the ordinary. Now then, as we move forward through this garbage contract, since you're the interim public works director and you would like to have this job as your job, did you not work real close with Mayor Clary in verifying the different things and the way that you help steer our committee on approaching the garbage contract?
Yes, that is correct. Mayor Claire and I were in daily contact communication.
Yes, sir, that's what I thought. A daily contact, because we talk daily too, all the time about stuff. You and I do. And I'm sure other aldermen been your ear as well, but I know the mayor at that time, since he was your direct supervisor and your boss, that you're wanting to be the full-time director, that you're going to do everything possible to make whatever he wants happen. Now then, having moved that forward, when we got into our discussions about writing the cancellation letter, didn't Chip Moore have us set up for another year to extend that contract?
I got to interrupt. Cancellation letter is not what that was. So if you want to repeat,
Well,
if you want to
whatever you'd
reword
like to
the
call
question, that'd be helpful.
Did Chip Moore have it set up, Marshall, for us to extend that contract for 1 year?
Yes, I believe there were conversations that former director Chip had with Republic.
Because he knew that we needed to do that.
Right, to extend the contract 1 year from July. Yeah.
Exactly. Now then, once we did that, once we realized that Mr. Robertson, he made a motion to rebid the contract, and I believe he actually said that day was Marshall working with staff and the mayor, he felt confident that we could rebid this garbage contract. And I said, I will be glad I would like to work with the mayor on this issue to make it happen. And Alderman Skidmore said, I don't think we got enough time. It's just, we don't have enough time. It's close. We really need to just extend it. But we voted 2-1 to go ahead and start the process on rebidding that contract. Am I correct so far, guys, on the Public Works Committee?
That's correct.
All right. So anyways, but the point I'm trying to make here is after we had our RFPs come back, and then we had some addendums attached to the contract about yard waste and 96-gallon containers. I'm sure you had discussions with the mayor along the way on those addendums to the entire process.
That's correct.
Well, I need to correct something there. There was no addendum about a 96-gallon container, so you need to reword that question.
Well, I'm just asking the question. Somewhere along in the way, there's 96-gallon containers go to the road. Somebody put it in there. I'm just trying to clear the air about that because it seems to be an issue with people on Facebook and other social media outlets talking about the garbage contract, what is and what is not. And there's a lot of confusion, and we all need to be on the same page, as Alderman Skidmore said, trying to come up with solutions. And I agree 100%.
Let me clear up the confusion. That went back to the
Pat
public works
Campbell is
committee.
asking questions. Let him finish.
He's interrupting.
Do you want me to clear up the confusion? Do you want me to clear up the confusion, Pat?
No,
No, sir. I'm doing a
finish
pretty good
with your
job. I'm just hitting nails on the head as to how things happened up to this point. And now you can come back, and I know you will. You're going to come back and explain your position, and that's fine. But I'm just trying to point out that Marshall Boyd worked his tail off on this contract to help the mayor move his project forward, as in additional funds for supplemental paving. He wanted to help get the money from the, he would prefer to have gone once a week curbside, but that wasn't happening with BOMA. It went to, and is that right, Marshall? Can you say yes or no on that?
That's correct.
Okay. What was the question that I preferred once a week curbside?
Marshall, did the mayor say anything to you about that? Talk to you about that?
No, I think did you ask my preference?
Well, I'm asking yours, but all right. And also the mayor, did you work with the mayor on that answer as well? Did you work with the mayor and say, hey, mayor, would you have a preference on this?
We discussed it, and from what I remember, of course, going through budget workshops and daily communication with the mayor, he, I think, was desiring to go with the once a week backdoor.
Okay, backdoor. And that's what we eventually come down to. And also Alderman Sprouse during that meeting asked me, he goes, where did the 3:45 in the morning vote? He goes, where do you think this vote is going? And I leaned over to him and I said, this is going to be once a week backdoor service. I said, that's exactly where this board's at right now. And lo and behold, it was a 12-1, I think, or maybe there's one abstention. I'm not exactly sure, but we voted and it come up with once a week backdoor eventually is where we got to. What I'm trying to say is to say that the mayor did not know where the garbage contract was is not correct. Our public works director was doing exactly what he was told in concert with his boss, who is the mayor, trying to facilitate his wishes. And that has caused some pushback with other people on this board. And that's all I'm trying to do is clear it up for Marshall, because he's the one that unfortunately has been stuck in the middle here on this whole issue. And I just think if we're going to have a big discussion on this, we need to sit down and have a discussion. If it's a 4-hour conversation, if it's at BOMA, that's all we talk about is garbage contracts and how it worked and how it came out, then so be it. But if it needs to be a public works committee meeting, so be it. Let's just do it. Let's clear the air and get this cleared up and move forward. And there's a lot more we can talk about, but we've got a lot more issues on this agenda tonight to move on with. So I'm going to support Alderman Woodcock's proposal amendment, and I just want to let everyone know that. And I thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Campbell, you can't back up at all what you just said. What you just said, that this was driven by me. You can't back that up at all. In fact, the timeline I read a few minutes ago shows that it wasn't
question.
one of the items that
Mayor, I asked Mr. Boyd if he was working with you and facilitating your wishes as you being his boss. I don't have any documentation. I have the employee sitting right here in front of us, sir. That's all I'm asking.
And he told you that if I had a preference, then it was backdoor once a week. Then you said that the whole thing was driven by the mayor. One of the things he also said was that Chip Moore had discussed extending the contract. The Public Works Committee never voted on extending the contract. The board never voted on extending the contract. The proposed extension of the contract was never in place. It was never voted. I couldn't do that because it had never been in place. So yes, there were discussions about extending the contract with Republic Services.
But Chip had it lined up with Republic. We'd like to get the gentleman from Republic with this.
Alderman Campbell, I'm going to go ahead. As Chairman Skidmore surely remembers that was something that we discussed, extending the contract, and the Public Works Committee never voted on that. So I couldn't go forward with that. One of the other things that you mentioned,
I was talking about interim Public Works Director had it worked out with Republic to extend that contract.
He had just sent, I think, a couple emails and a couple text messages. That was it.
But he had
Nothing
it
was
worked
worked
out.
out. Nothing was worked out. There was nothing worked out. He had actually never even brought it to the Public Works Committee. He had never even brought the conversations he had with Republic Services. We had nothing worked out. We had nothing at all worked out. And also, again, I'm going to correct this. There was no addendum for a 96-gallon container. You were at the Public Works Committee meeting when that came up in July. You were at the Public Works Committee after the contract was signed as part of the frequently asked questions. You were at the Public Works Committee meeting when that came up in January as part of the frequently asked questions. There was no addendum about the 96-gallon requirement to be taken to the road. So you can't say that I put that in the contract or had that inserted as an addendum. It didn't exist. And again, I'm going on based on the documentation that I have with emails and contracts that came from our staff.
Well,
There
I'm
was
just
no
going,
96-gallon addendum. I'd appreciate it.
I'm going on
if people told the
conversations
truth
I've
on
had
it.
with our interim director who's trying to.
People, I would
get the job.
appreciate it if people would tell the truth about this.
I am telling the
I
truth.
very much disagree with the 96-gallon requirement that it be taken to the road.
So do you think it ought to be
expressed
hiked?
that- I'm going to go ahead, Alderman Campbell. I expressed that in July.
Do you think
I
it should be hiked?
expressed that in January.
It'll be strictly based on height.
Alderman Campbell, it's hard for people to hear when you continue to do this.
Well, you do it. So I just thought I'd
Waste
throw it in there
Pro-
too. Ask the question.
Waste Pro, after the contract was agreed to, they asked that 96-gallon containers be required to be brought to the road. I disagreed with that in July. That was not in the contract. They need to live up to the contract. I disagreed with that in January. I disagree with that in February. I disagree with that now. I stated it publicly many, many times that in the contract,
I call the
people with
question.
96-gallon containers can leave those at the back door as long as they're not above 42 inches. I continue to disagree with that. That was not an addendum.
42 inches,
It's
you saying height?
disappointing-
Did
And
you
I
say the height?
second that.
It's disappointing that that
Thank you.
continues. It's disappointing that people continue to say that that was an addendum.
This,
But the
I can
42 inches,
underst-
sir.
I can
The
understand. that
question was called.
I can understand that that may have been a mistake, but from now on, it seems to be an intentional error. That's why I have to spend time on this, because it's been
Please
repeated many,
recognize-
many times.
please
Many, many
recognize
times.
me, Mayor.
Alderman Robertson, you're next.
I'm going to speak to the motion. I'm not,
Okay,
I'm
go
going
ahead.
to try to get us back on focus here.
Thank you.
I believe approval of this motion may be in conflict of the contract for the following reasons. The motion says.
You're right.
The motion says if the company does complaints by 50%, Alderman Woodcock, that we would consider withholding payments. What if there were 125 complaints one week and the next week there were 63 complaints? That would be 50%, but it's still over the 50 complaints per week that the contract calls for. Further, what if the company has 50 complaints one week and they cut the complaints to 27? That's not 50%, but it's not within the contract, the bogey of 50. So I believe that this that as it resides could bring us in conflict with the contract. I would prefer this motion be withdrawn and the motion that was made in Public Works that passed unanimously be approved, and for us to continue this investigative team to bring back recommendations when they deem justification for enforcement actions are warranted. Thank you.
Let's go to Alderman Woodcock, since you addressed him.
And I hope everyone did make this mistake. I did not mention withholding payment one time. What I suggested was a compromise between the mayor's request to withhold payment and the list of items that Public Works recommended last week. My exact motion was that if the trash situation does not get better, and I use 50% of last month's misses, then we would proactively call the 5 companies that were listed versus hoping that Waste Pro is doing that, and try to just start proactively addressing the issue. That may not work like what Alderman Brown said. There may not be a company willing to do that. So then at our next meeting, let's try something else. We can't just sit back and hope the situation is going to get better. And I don't believe we are at a point of withholding payment. I think we all agree on that for the most part. So I'm just stating that we need to start doing something to get us back on track. And if Waste Pro gets us back on track next week, great. But if we still have another 500 misses, then we need to start doing something, not just sitting back waiting for Waste Pro to fix their own problem. So my motion was to call the 5 companies versus Waste Pro calling those if the misses are not over 50%.
So if the city calls, who would pay for that subcontractor to come in and pick up the misses?
I would assume we would coordinate a phone call between Waste Pro because they're obviously trying, but they can't get anyone to call them back. And so if we are lucky enough to get someone to call us back, we can put those 2 people together.
Alderman Robertson? Does it help if I incorporate in my motion what passed in the Public Works Committee last week?
Clearly, there's a lot to be worked out. I would send this back to Public Works.
I'm going to let Alderman Robertson answer this question.
Well, that would be up to the motion.
Well, and that's me. That's me. I'm the person who made the motion.
Oh, I thought we were on Mr. Woodcock's motion.
I changed my motion to accommodate his suggestion.
Jamie hijacked it.
Okay.
I'm just trying to help. I'm happy for Public Works to review it. I'm just trying to get us to stop fighting for an hour and something happen. Because right now we're just spinning our wheels, yelling at each other and embarrassing ourselves on TV.
All right. Yeah, I think if you could incorporate that, the Public Works motion. I mean, I don't want to speak for the other members of the committee, but I think that would be more of a holistic approach.
Okay. So I'll restate my motion to what it was earlier and essentially amend it to the 4 items that were passed by the Public Works Committee last week. Alderman Robertson, there were 4, am I correct?
No, there were 3.
There were 3. Okay. Alderman Waters, will you second that? And then we'll go back to Alderman Robertson to remind us what those 3 were.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So Alderman Robert, I'll come to you in just a second, Marshall. Alderman Robertson, do you want to explain what those 3 items were?
The first item was we offered possible solutions for existing and future problems. Pat Campbell or Alderman Campbell made a recommendation. Alderman Petrelli made a recommendation of rolling schedule. I made a recommendation of hiring a contractor, a subcontractor. And on those possible solutions, the company was to report back within 5 days. And I think that they have, but they're still trying to find a subcontractor. They have gone to the rolling schedule. I'm not sure about Alderman Campbell's suggestion. The second item was that we appointed an investigative team to make sure due process was followed, but to bring back to us recommendations on enforcement action if warranted by the contract. And that investigative team was the interim city director, marshal, and really to be led by the city attorney, because he's going to have to defend us if we go to court. The last thing was added surveillance and more reporting and notice by the company to Public Works if there were going to be large misses in any of the wards, so that the alderman and the mayor could be prepared for that miss. And also surveillances of misses over 24 hours. So those 3 points, I think, outline our next step in the process of trying to get the company to comply with the contract. And if they don't, then the next step will be taken. But I think that we're outlining process steps that a court of law, if our decision is appealed, would see it as prudent and rational. So those are.
Oh, Alderman Robertson, we left you. Okay. Alderman Robertson, we finished.
Oh, what part did you hear at last?
I think the very end. Maybe I think we heard everything we needed to hear, to be honest with you. We lost you for about 2 seconds.
Yeah, I think I've said too much already.
Okay. Let me clarify. My initial motion to withhold payment is not part of this motion. I still think this company needs help. And I want to make sure that if we bring in help, that the city isn't paying the help and Waste Pro. Waste Pro needs to be paying for that help if that happens. So Alderman, thank you, Alderman Robertson. Alderman Bolt.
Can I call a question on this? Can we vote on this?
A second.
We have a motion from Alderman Bolt and a second from Alderman Petrelli to call a question that requires 9 votes, and there's no discussion. All those in favor of calling the question on the motion, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name. This is just on calling the question.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Aye.
Clary. It's unanimous.
Okay. Thank you. Now we have a vote on the main motion that includes what Alderman Woodcock mentioned, as well as the 3 points from Alderman
I
Robertson.
bet they are.
And we
Gonna
have
get
and we have no more debate. All those in
Can you
favor, please
restate the motion one time from front
Alderman
to back?
Woodcock, do you want to restate your portion? Alderman Robertson, will you then restate yours?
Do y'all really want to hear it again? All right, here we
Yes.
go. All right.
But I
here
don't
we-
want any discussion on it. I just want to hear it again.
There's no
Okay.
discussion.
I think I know it by heart by now. 3 points. The first point is the offering of solutions that Waste Pro is to implement or to work on. Those deal with pickup trucks to the back doors on long backdoor service, rolling schedule, subcontractors to be paid by Waste Pro for misses, to pick up misses. Number 2, an investigative team made up of the city attorney, the interim city administrator, and marshal. And the last is added surveillance that the company and Public Works provides to this board. The added surveillance would assist the investigative team in determining whether enforcement actions are warranted or not. That's it. The 3 points.
Thank you. Kay, did you get all that?
I did.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Woodcock, will you explain your portion? Or just tell us what the portion is?
Yeah, so by the end of next week, if misses are not down 50% from the June number, which was 500 roughly, that we will proactively seek subcontractors to pick up the misses.
I appreciate that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. I see a couple hands up there. I'm going to ask those go down, but I suspect that possibly Tina and Mr. Bradley and Kay may want to take a break. They're the only ones here that can't take a break. They've got to be here the whole time. So somebody, I want to entertain that motion to take a break and hope that somebody will make that motion.
Motion for 10-minute break.
You have a motion for a 10-minute break from Alderman Sprouse and a second from, I didn't hear this, see the second. Second from Alderman Campbell. Alderman Petrelli, did you want to discuss that?
No, I was just getting ready to vote.
Okay. All those in favor of taking a 10-minute break, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
You're muted.
Brown,
I suppose Mr. Bradley's got to go. So
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli.
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
No.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's 12-1.
That passes
Mark's everybody's
unanimously.
friend.
We'll be back here at 9:32. Thank you.
Andy Gilly.
Yes, sir.
I'm a man.
Excuse me, sir.
man.
Reminder,
Oh man,
you are
I'm
still being
40.
broadcast and you are still being recorded.
Thank you, Tina. We'll be nice.
Oh yeah, I've already learned my lesson. Definitely learned my lesson on that one.
Breaking out the big guns here, guys. Just want to let you know.
I'm seeing still a couple blank boxes, so we'll wait for another minute. I don't see Alderman Waters, Alderman Hayes, Alderman Woodcock, Alderman Bolt. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm here, just the phone charge.
I got you. I appreciate that. Tina, you're back with us. Kay, are you back with us? Kay is back with us. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Alderman Hayes, I think I counted you twice. Try again, 1, 2, 3,
We're all here.
4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Alderman Waters. And
Ask Mark if he's having fun yet. He said, laughing my ass off.
Alderman Waters. I'm still like, Tina, can you help me? I'm only counting 12.
I'm here.
Thank you, Alderman Waters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There we go, 13. Okay. Tina, tell us when we can begin, please. Okay. Okay. Thank you. We're back. Next on the agenda is offer the position of city administrator to one of the candidates recently interviewed. Since both of those folks were in front of us 2 weeks ago, I will consider both of them nominated. I also want to mention that 2 weeks ago we discussed this. I believe it was Alderman Brown, please correct me if I'm wrong, asked Gary Jekyll, or representative from MTAS, what the committee is, who the committee is usually composed of, that goes to the candidate and works out a contract with them. And Gary, I think you're with us. I think your answer was it needs to be HR director, it needs to be city attorney, and typically it is the mayor as well, since he's the chairman of the board. I hope that the board will agree with that, since that came from our MTAS representative. To not agree with that very much shows a willingness for double standards, simply because you don't want me, I suspect, being part of that committee. We heard from Gary Jekyll what his recommendation was and what was typical. And so I hope you all will go along with that. I think I've proven that we need a city administrator. And I think I've proven that, contrary to what many people have said, I don't seek delays in this. I seek that we get somebody, and that we get somebody to serve here, and that we get somebody correctly.
Mayor, I don't need Mr. Jekyll's recommendation. I'd like to be recognized, please.
You will, as soon as I finish.
Okay.
Actually, Steve Brown is first. So I will mention that I think it's important to have an elected person in that committee. I think it's important to have the chairman of the board on that committee. So far, on the committee that researched having a city administrator, there was no elected person. Nobody was accountable to the voters on that committee. On the committee that studied the candidates, there was nobody elected. There was nobody accountable to voters on that committee. So those are two committees, neither one of which had an elected person. Nobody was accountable to the voters on those committees. And to put somebody, and to put this next committee together to hammer out an agreement, a contract with the candidate that is not voted, and only people who are not voted upon, that's 3 times that those committees are composed of people who aren't accountable to the voters. And I think that's a mistake. So Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't want to take a lot of time, but I would like to thank everyone who's worked up to this point on committees and spent time. 25 applicants, I believe, narrowed that down to 2. We were all fortunate enough to spend some personal time with each one of those candidates about 3 weeks ago, and I think had a pretty good interview with those folks last week. I know some of us have made some phone calls, talked to some people, did due diligence. I don't know who, everybody's done that, but I've made some, talked to some folks that have got me to the point that I'm fairly comfortable with either candidate. I think would do the job, but I'm a little bit more comfortable with one than I am the other, simply because of a couple answers and time and grade, or time at job. So with that being said, I'd like to put the name of Carmen Davis out for a yes or no vote, up or down vote by this board to become the city administrator for the city of Hendersonville. as soon as a committee can be formed and possibly an offer made, her accepted, and get her here, at which time works for all. So
Second.
it's my motion.
So Alderman Brown, who is on that committee?
The committee is not part of my motion.
Okay.
Just accepting Ms. Davis would be part of my motion.
Okay. Okay. We can do this one of two ways. We can go ahead, and I heard the second, we can go ahead and vote on just this one motion, or we can have an election.
No.
That's the motion on the floor.
So anybody else with the Alderman Brown, go ahead. This is discussion. I'm sorry, Alderman Woodcock.
Thank you. I was going to ask the city attorney about the negotiating committee. And I know that's not part of the motion, but I need to know if we make this vote, does that automatically set the committee, or will the committee come after this and then we'll be able to select those members at that point?
This vote would not have anything to do with who talks to the person. I think what the interim city administrator had his ideas about how it ought to best be handled. And you might want to ask him for his ideas. That was one of the reasons he was hired, was to help bring this new person in after, if there's a vote with someone getting 7. But until someone gets 7 votes, we don't have anybody to talk to or negotiate with. But this motion would have nothing to do with who actually does that. And I want to point out that no matter who talks to the candidate, no matter who talks to them or what they talk about, this board has to approve any agreement. Any employment agreement is going to be brought back to this board. So no matter who talks to the candidate, this board's going to have the final say on it.
Okay, so the city administrator can appoint that committee on his own?
In my opinion, he can, or he can ask HR to take care of it and ask Mr. Jekyll to help them. Because so much of this is going to be another city employee. So most of the things that other city employees have, I'm assuming this city employee will also have. So the things you need to talk about are term, severance, salary, and leave. That's pretty much the things that would be potentially could be different from other city employees, because other city employees don't have an employment agreement. And, you know, my idea was that if we have someone with 7 votes, is that, you know, that the HR director can reach out to them and say, you know, what are your expectations? What is it you're looking for in an agreement? And it might be something that everybody on this board would think was very reasonable, would bring it back to the next meeting. There may be some things that aren't so easy. But at the end of the day, this board has got to approve it. And I know Mr. Lamar, I know he's got some ideas about it. I know he's talked to Mr. Jekyll, and Mr. Jekyll's talked to Mr. Lamar about this at great length. But it really doesn't matter until we have a candidate to talk to. And that's I think Mr. Brown's motion was limited to that.
Yeah, I agree. I just didn't want to wait until after the vote to ask that question and then find out I should have done it before. So
no, that question is still unresolved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Woodcock. Alderman Petrelli.
I believe Alderman Bolt was in before me, so I'm happy to wait.
I don't see a hand there.
Yes, I am there. I've been there. I'm always there.
You're not there.
I've been there.
Now you are.
I've been there. But anyway, I believe you.
Alderman Bolt.
Yeah, I'd like to just make a couple of quick comments. I've done quite a bit of due diligence on this. I do have contacts in Mississippi, so I've made a number of phone calls to many different sources. Some that will vote against this have not done that. Here's what I've found that's been consistent with Mrs. Davis, is that she's very, very professional. Uber professional is the term that's used more than once. She's terrific on relationships. She can get along with anybody. She's apolitical. One person I talked to runs a very successful lobbying agency, and he said she's never shown her hand in all the years that he's dealt with her as to what her political leanings are. As you all know, it's a staff position, so it's not a political position in any way, but I'm sure a few will want to make it such. The other thing too is that she's lasted through multiple elections in a very difficult, some called it nasty, political environment. In fact, in 2010, she was the third city administrator appointed in that particular year, and she lasted almost 10 years. Several people said no one lasts that long in the environment down there. So she's done a great job with that. And everybody's also said that she's just done a terrific, consistent job. So I would be I would feel the same way that Alderman Brown feels on this, and appreciate that. So I'd like to call the question.
Motion to call the question.
Second.
In a second. All those in favor of discontinuing discussion and voting on Carmen Davis, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Oh,
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
No.
Woodcock,
No.
Clary,
No. I'd like to explain my reasons for voting against her. Okay, did that pass with 9 votes?
well, this for calling the question.
Yes.
Yes, 9-4.
I want to verify my math real quick.
Wow.
That requires 9 votes.
Unbelievable.
All those in favor of hiring Carmen Davis to be our city administrator, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
No.
Waters,
No.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Robertson,
oh,
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Yes.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary.
No.
That's 9-4.
Passes 9-4.
Surprise.
I bet.
I'm going to make a motion that our committee to work with Ms. Davis, Carmen Davis, to create a contract, include Chris Taylor, John Bradley, Dave Amarb, and I. Also move.
Mayor, I'll second that motion.
I second.
Motion, please.
Second from Alderman Sprouse. Alderman Sprouse, your hand is up. Do you wish to discuss?
I do. And that was what I was going to say a little earlier. I do not need, as much as I respect the counsel of Mr. Jekyll, this was something which I did not need to have his recommendation. I feel like that we should have an environment where the CEO of the city should be involved in this discussion, regardless of who that CEO is by right of the office. They should have part of that discussion. I've expressed that previously to the city administrator. Now, here's part of my reasoning for this. I think lead on this discussion should be Chris Taylor. I guess we've just now made him our permanent HR director. He has the ability, I believe, to negotiate with any employee at any level of service. One reason why I'd like to have a little bit extra layer there is because technically he would be sitting across the table from the person who would be his direct supervisor. And as professional Mr. Taylor is in, I think he would agree that that can be an uncomfortable situation for someone to be in, and it's just easier to have an extra level. What I really think that we would need to do is have Mr. Jekyll involved as well in the discussion. So you had a 4-member committee?
Yes, yes.
So we don't have to worry about a tie. Would you be interested in adding Mr. Jekyll there as a member of that committee?
I'm fine with that, but we should look to him. He sort of seems to be nodding no. Maybe.
Are you nodding, Gary? That's okay. I don't want to call you out if you don't want to do it. I mean, it's okay.
I had to unmute myself. I'm not comfortable necessarily being, I mean, I'll help with the process.
I'm fine with that then. I'm fine with that. If you'll help consult when needed, I trust that room of people to bring a recommendation. Now, there has been some things said a little bit earlier about the process that I think need to be said. One of the reasons that we had no elected officials on the ad hoc committee to study about whether or not we needed a city administrator was because we didn't want a political answer. And most importantly, when the board of mayor and aldermen is asking a group of people to advise us after research and consideration, we don't need to be part of the process of doing that advice. It's the same reason when people come to me and say, here's a petition I'm sending to the city and they want me to sign it. If it's going to the board of mayor and aldermen, I don't sign it. It's kind of like talking to myself. So if we wanted an independent, apolitical, in case of with Mr. Fox is here with us, professional opinion about process. And that's what we had. And so we ultimately made those decisions, and some of us had varying degrees of how much we used the advice and the consideration that the committee used. But to say that that elected officials were pushed out of the process is absolutely wrong, because we appointed the committee did its work, and then we were the ones who made the decision. The board as a whole made a decision based upon a recommendation of the committee, a committee that invited each of us to engage individually in questions and answers and wanting to know what did we want them to find out as part of their research. So I hope that we can continue the spirit and we can have this group work, particularly with our HR director taking the lead, but with the counsel of these other members, so he could have a little bit of a professional distance from his hiring his supervisor and negotiating with his supervisor, and that there won't be any sort of process to delay on this, and everyone can work together. I think this is a good opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sprouse. Alderman Edwards.
Okay, so just so there's clarification, do we have, or is the proposal to have 5 members on this committee?
It's 4. It's Dave Lamar, Chris Taylor, John Bradley, and I.
Okay. And I do mean this with the utmost respect. The mayor, you just voted against hiring Miss Davis, and the proposal is for you to be on the hiring committee. If I can get some verification on the record that there will be no obstruction in the hiring process and entering it into proposal of a contract that will be presented to us, then I would be comfortable including you as well as the other proposed members on that committee.
Russ, several months ago, we were told that everything would be decided by the board when it came to qualifications and it came to expectations. Some decisions were made by staff and put together as a package to advertise for this. I didn't think that was right. I thought that we should go back to the board to approve that. Some people call that obstruction. We had been guaranteed that all the decisions for the qualifications and expectations would be decided by the board. When it looked like some of those were not going to be even brought to the board for consideration, I felt like we should delay to go back to the board. Again, some people call that obstruction. I absolutely will not obstruct this, but I will make sure that we follow the law and that we do everything that has been expressed by the will of the majority of the board tonight. And if something comes up that doesn't follow the will of the majority of the board, I'm going to want to come back to the board.
Okay, that's all I have. I really wish we could add somebody else. If someone wants to nominate one of the one of the aldermen on it. Maybe we could have another elected official on it. So we do have an odd number. I agree with Alderman Sprouse. I think we should have an odd number on it in case there is a tie.
I can take
And
care of
voting.
that, Alderman Edwards. I don't intend to have any sort of a vote on a committee. I'm to give legal counsel. I'm not a negotiator in the sense that this is anticipated. I think I should be there to give legal advice. So that leaves you with 3 people.
Okay. Oh,
So I
very
guess what my
well.
motion, so I guess my motion should be that the committee is Dave Lamar, Chris Taylor, myself, and we're going to take it. Well, we'll take advice from anybody, obviously, but we will certainly take advice from John Bradley and Gary Jacob.
Yes, and I'll second that with the but I also want to include that Mr. Taylor is the chair of that committee.
Okay, if someone wants to nominate and consider another, well, never mind. Okay, but that's all I have. Thank you.
I appreciate that. Alderman Bolt.
Yeah, unlike a couple of members of, just 2 members of the board, I'm willing to go along with the consensus. Alderman Edwards brought this up, but the mayor did vote against it. The mayor's been against it from day one. And I think, I don't want to speak for Gary. He's willing to, I'm happy to have him speak, but I think he misspoke. In every other situation in the state of Tennessee, when you bring on a city administrator, it's a mayor that already works with the city administrator. It's an administrator that already exists and they support each other. So it's not one fighting against the other. And one person's income doesn't depend on it, so on and so forth. So, I really would struggle with that. Not only that, but various members of your direct or indirect family on Facebook are saying if we can just change the board over, we'll go ahead and vote this thing back out.
You're really going to bring that up again?
I'm bringing up was actually factual. So, I mean, and I think Alderman Edwards asked for that. I can't trust the process, but unlike others, if that's the consensus of the board, I respect what Alderman Sprouse said. If he's willing to go along with it, if the majority of the board is willing to go along with it, I'll also do that. Thank you.
Alderman Petrelli.
Thank you, Mayor. With this process for negotiations, maybe either Dave or Mr. Bradley can answer. Should we set a time frame so that this isn't unnecessarily drug out? I don't know what would be an appropriate time frame. Maybe Dave, you have some insight, or Mr. Bradley, something that works with the applicant, but I just don't want it to unnecessarily be stalled out on our end.
Dave, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I'd like to see, I think this can be done easily within less than a 2-week time frame and come back on August 11th for final confirmation with a negotiation from the city standpoint and from the candidate standpoint.
All right, so I would like to make a motion that we have that time frame put on there. And if somebody can't make the meetings that's on the committee, that's on them. That will not stall out the committee.
I'll second it.
Well, Alderman Petrelli, I think Alderman Sprouse and I are going to agree on this, that we can add to our motion that Chris Taylor will be the chairman and that we will report back on August 11th, if not with an agreement, but with a status of where we are in the agreement. Alderman Sprouse, do you agree to that?
No.
No, this is my amendment. That sounds like another stalling tactic. It seems like we should have a report maybe from Mr. Taylor or Mr. Lamar prior to the 11th, and everything is ready to go to be voted upon on the 11th.
Oh, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. But what I'm concerned about is that, and I will recognize your motion. What I'm concerned about is I want to understand if this person has, if Carmen Davis, if she hasn't agreed to that by August 11th or August 8th or August 6th, before we send out the information, what do we do?
Report back to the board.
What do you want from this? What do you want from the committee?
To
Hey,
report.
let me suggest this, because 2 weeks is a
Hold on
very
one
short.
second. I want an answer from Alderman Petrelli. I'm
I
trying to
thought
understand.
you'd hear from council. I think council and the CA understand what I'm asking, and I see a lot of head nodding. So, Mr. Bradley, what do you recommend?
Well, I understand what Mr. Lamar was trying to accomplish, and I totally agree with it, that we hopefully will have something by the first meeting in August. But I would put in your motion that in no event shall it go past the second meeting in August, that we report and have an agreement ready for the board to approve. And I hope we can do it in the first meeting. It's just, I don't have any idea what Ms. Davis's schedule will be for the next few days. And I don't want us to be hamstrung on that. So I agree with that it should be, our target should be August 11th, but in no event should it go past August 25th with the proposed agreement.
Okay, I will, I'll amend my amendment then with those words, that a target date of the 11th, not to go past the second reading. Thank you.
And that's a target date to have an agreement or contract from her?
Yes, to have an agreement for approval by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen.
I'm fine with that. Alderman Strauss?
I'm fine with that too.
Yeah, I just need some clarification. I appreciate that. So
Thank you.
that's gonna be in the original motion. Alderman Petrelli, anything else?
No, thank you.
Alderman Edwards, I still see your hand up.
I have nothing further. I'll take
Thank
it
you.
down.
Alderman Bolt, yours is up, but I think you spoke. Alderman Woodcock.
I've been thinking about not saying this, but we've now spent more time talking about the committee than the person we just selected to run our city. And as a citizen, I'll be honest, I feel insulted. We cut discussion after hearing two pros and not one other person was allowed to speak. And now we're spending more time about the committee that's going to negotiate our contract. And I just think that was wrong. That's for me as a citizen. I'm sure some will disagree. I saw some of you laugh and make comments. I'm sure I'm in the minority, but I just wish we could have had more discussion there. Thanks.
Alderman Cunningham.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a question for council. Does this have to go before a committee prior to it coming to BOMA, the final contract?
That's whatever this board wants. There's no requirement that an appointment go before a committee. If you wanted to go before the finance committee, you could do that, or any other committee, but that's obviously going to result in potentially at least some delay.
Well, that's why I'm asking the question, because I don't want it to be a delay.
Yeah, there's no reason. Make that a part of the motion that this come back before the board on August 11th or no later than August 25th without the involvement of any committee recommendation. I think everybody's on board with that because it's going to be the whole board that's voting on this. And, you know, there's no reason for 3 of the 13 members of the board to have any more input than anyone else. And this way it comes before the board and everybody's got the same voice with respect to this agreement.
Okay,
John,
would the maker of that amendment consider that?
I'm not. It's my intention for it to come back on the 11th and certainly at latest by the 25th. But I'm not going to prevent any committee from taking a look at this. If the committee chairman wants to take a look at it, I'm fine with that. I mean, we're still moving on the same timeline. The committee will not be able to slow it down.
I have no intention of slowing this down. That's why I asked the question. Would the maker of that amendment consider that? That it just comes straight to BOMA?
We incorporated the amendment into the main motion. So we just have a motion. We don't have an amendment.
I'm sorry. I thought we had him. I thought Alderman Sprouse had made an amendment to that. Sorry, my mistake.
Alderman Brown.
I must have had my hand up from before because I don't have anything.
That happens to the best of us. Alderman Waters.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got to echo what Alderman Woodcock just said. I know my phone's not the only one that's burning up here. People calling in how ridiculous we are and how we're acting. But I got to thinking, if this candidate is watching this program and this show, I'm gonna call it a show. I'm just wondering how she's feeling. We should have been through with this an hour ago, and I know we all got bones to pick with one another, and we all trying to voice our own opinion, but you know, it's embarrassing. And so, Mayor, I'll just go ahead and call the question, okay?
A motion to call the question. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Alderman Edwards. All those in favor of voting on this committee composition and the dates that we've given, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed say no. This is to call the question.
Bolt,
No.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Sorry. Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Uh,
Petrelli,
No.
Robertson,
No.
Skidmore, Skidmore,
You're mute.
Mark, we still haven't heard you.
Aye.
Sprouse,
No.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
No.
No. 8 ayes, 5 nays.
Okay, Alderman Waters, anything else to add?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that. Alderman Petrelli.
Sorry, my hand was up from previously. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments earlier. Alderman Cunningham.
Oh, that must have been a hand from before.
Happens to the best of us. Thank you for your comments earlier. Alderman Sprouse.
Thank you, Mayor. So let's just make sure we set it. I agree. Sometimes it's very frustrating how much time we talk about process, but I think it's because we have discussions in these meetings or we have discussions in committee, and then what happens afterwards, there seems to be some lack of clarity, at least claimed. So one of the things I just want to make sure that we know, the motion is a committee of 3 with the interim city administrator, the mayor, and the head of HR, with the HR acting as chairman of that committee, Mr. Jekyll, Mr. Bradley consulting as needed in that. The expectation is that they are going to negotiate a contract with the hire, with an expectation of it coming to the board or mayor and aldermen no later than August 25th, but potentially as early as August 11th. That will not require review by any committee. If a committee chairman wants to say something, they can. General handles personnel. I'm going to ask for a meeting. I'm going to ask it to be on our agenda only if the members of the committee vote or bring it to us. If Mr. Lamar brings it to us and says it's something that needs to be discussed just to kind of get some feel, that's what I will do, but I will do it by request if the committee feels like that's something that can help with the process. So it's going to be the responsibility of the chairman to schedule those committee meetings. We have a full-time mayor. We have a full-time city administrator. Basically, we have a full-time head of HR. I think they should be able to schedule those meetings. I would like to think that they would be able to schedule those meetings by the end of tomorrow and get a course of action going. If there's any conflicts with schedules and folks can't make it, I hope the chairman does as we do when we schedule our meetings and tries to work with someone as much as possible to schedule those. But if someone has repeated situations where they cannot attend, the meeting is going to have to take place with them or without them, as long as quorum is there. So I think I got everything that was in the motion in the second. Mayor, you think I missed anything?
I think you hit it.
Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Alderman Strauss. Thank you, Alderman Strauss. Alderman Bolt.
Yes, based on what Alderman Woodcock said, I wanted to apologize to Alderman Woodcock for not giving him an opportunity to communicate. It was just from my perspective, we met the candidates. We sat through an hour and a half of listening to them and all those kind of questions. And my concern was any attempt to embarrass a candidate or drag this thing out incessantly like we went through the garbage issue, which was just not, necessary. So if you don't mind, Daryl, I apologize for that. If I'd have known, I wouldn't have done that. So thank you.
Alderman Bolt, thank you. Alderman Edwards.
I'm sorry, I don't have anything. I don't know. My hand was up.
That's understandable. You're fine. Thank you for your comments earlier.
Thank you.
I don't believe anybody else is wishing to speak. I'm just going to look on the grid right now and look for hands or look for somebody or listen for somebody speaking. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kate calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore, Skidmore.
I
Was
said
that
aye 15 times.
No, you didn't.
I did while it was mute.
Robertson,
Aye.
Oh, man.
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
That was unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. That passes unanimously. Next, we have ordinance and resolutions, and we have grouped A, B, C, D, and E. We are welcome to have conversation, discussion on those, but we're going to be voting on them as a group. Let me go ahead and read these. This is second reading of ordinance 2020-22, an ordinance appropriating funds received for painting a fire department vehicle. This is second reading of ordinance 2020-23, an ordinance accepting and appropriating a COPS hiring program grant. This includes reading of resolution 2020-40. This is a resolution amending the job classification list and pay tables. This includes reading of resolution 2020-42, a resolution accepting a donation from the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation by the Hendersonville Police Department. This includes resolution 2020-43, a resolution designating property located at 1330 Drake Creek Road, Volunteer Park, Arrowhead, to be used for fire station number 7. I entertain a motion to approve those 5.
So moved.
I have a motion from Alderman Brown
Second.
and a second from Alderman Waters. I see nobody's little blue hand lit up. I see nobody's real life hand when I look at the photo, when I look at the images here. If someone wishes to speak, please go ahead and do it now. All those in favor of second reading of ordinance 2020-22, second reading of ordinance 2020-23, the first and only reading of resolution 2020-40, the first and only reading of resolution 2020-42, and the first and only reading of resolution 2020-43. Please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Kay. Those 5 items have been approved. Next, we have under other agenda items, a vote on the appointment of Thomas Golden to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation, and a vote on the reappointment of Ed Spurlock to serve on the Industrial Development Board. Both these items were grouped earlier when we set the agenda, so they'll be considered as a group. We can still speak on them, but when we vote, we'll be voting on both items simultaneously. I see nobody's little blue hand to the right, and I see nobody's flesh-colored hand to the left. If anybody wishes to speak on these, please go ahead and speak up.
We don't have a motion for approval.
I appreciate you pointing that out,
I'll make
Kay.
a motion.
We have a motion
Second.
from Alderman Sprouse and a second from somebody who I can't
Second.
identify right now. Second from
Second.
Alderman Campbell. Thank you.
Mhm.
All those in favor of appointing Thomas Golden to serve on the Board of Parks and Recreation and reappointing Ed Spurlock to serve on the Industrial Development Board, please signify by saying aye. Those opposed, please say no when Kay calls your name.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Bolt,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's
Move to
unanimous.
adjourn and go Preds.
Hold on one second. Kay, did that pass unanimously?
Yes, it did.
Kay, have I neglected any items on our agenda?
Not tonight. Nope.
Thank you for that. Next
Move
on
to
the
adjourn.
agenda, I need to entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Sprouse, so moved.
Second.
Second.
Second from Alderman Edwards. All those in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye when Kay calls your name. Those opposed, please say no.
Bolt,
Aye.
Brown,
Aye.
Campbell,
Aye.
Cunningham,
Aye.
Edwards,
Aye.
Hayes,
Aye.
Petrelli,
Aye.
Robertson,
Aye.
Skidmore,
Aye.
Sprouse,
Aye.
Waters,
Aye.
Woodcock,
Aye.
Clary.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
That passes unanimously. We're adjourned. Tina, thank you so much for your help. Kay, thank you so much for your help. Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.